What's up, everybody? Wow. Got to catch up to your comments. Thanks for coming in as usual, everyone. I know, as always, we're gonna let the stragglers come in a few minutes late. So I'll say my hellos to you. That's why it works out perfectly every week, every Sunday night. So number one Marvel fan, thank you, sir, as always. You came in 19 minutes early, and I'm sure as I replied to you in the chat that everyone will agree they're doing fine. Ian says he's doing howdy. How's it going, Ian? Good to see you, sir. David Barr, all the way from Oz. What's up? Good to see you, sir. And he says hello to Rich too. Rich will be here in moments. I'm very happy to have him. I think it's going to be a good, real fun show tonight. Gil, good to see you. You obviously stepped in a bit early here. Coming up, Boston, checking in for a little while, and you checked in early, but thank you, sir. I appreciate it as always. And a few of you have been coming in early. Wow, these are all from before 8 o'clock. Okay, Rickster, what's up, Rick? Jason, good to see you, sir, as always. Thank you so much. My lovely wife, Vivian, thank you. My dear, thank you. Good to see you. Thanks for all the support, as always. And CJ, what is up, CJ? Good to see you, sir. I hope the last couple of days since we last spoke have you feeling 2 days healthier. So hopefully the ribs are getting better by the day, man. Good to see you. Thank you as always, Mr. Easy Go Lucky. Hello, sir. Thank you as always for dropping in. And yo, what is up, Marcus? Good to see you as always as well. Thank you, sir. And yes, of course, everybody give it up to Kavi, my pal Kavi, everybody's pal Kavi. His birthday today. Maybe he'll drop in if he has a chance a little bit later. And who else we got here? So CJ, okay, there you go. Thank you for baking a cake for Kavi. And go Niners. You know what, Jeff? Good to see you, sir. I am definitely, since all the 3 teams I follow are gone. I don't really have a horse in the game, but in that game I'm going for Niners. Yes, so I'm with you on that one. So that's pretty cool. And thank you as always, everybody. If you can just hit the like button real quick, I really appreciate it. That would be awesome. And Nikki jumping in early to ask to hit the thumbs up. Thank you. Appreciate it, everybody. And you know what, Nixter, I forgot last week. I'm pretty sure I forgot last week. Everybody, I forgot last week. Please, this coming Friday, check out Nikki B Show, the EXP on youtube.com/the EXP Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. I'm pretty sure I forgot to mention it last week. I was too busy yapping, I guess. But yes, please tune in every week. It's 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific every Friday. Great fun way to end the week. And it's a sales show for those of you who don't know. You can buy some affordable art and occasionally some higher end art. So it's a fun hour and great. Yeah, so great way to come home from work and spend a little time with some friends in the chat. So please check that out. And here you guys don't forget, since I forgot last week. There you go, Friday 7 p.m. Eastern. There you go. And there's Nicky B, the handsome man himself. So very cool. All righty, let me jump back in here real quick. And what's up, Hart? Hart showed up. Good to see you, sir. And Kavi's not here, but he'll maybe catch it on rewind and see that you're all giving him the happy birthday wishes. So van life, that's never gonna die. It's never gonna die. Never say die. Cobra Kai, never say van life. It's so funny. Van life, Marcus. Awesome. And yes, Nick sold out of all the art last week. So very cool. And Nick, my pleasure. Thank you very much. And it's great to help you as you help me, and we help each other out. That's what the community should be all about. So thank you, guys. Real quick, guys, I'm not sure if I'm going to do a show next week. I can tell you right now, I do not have a friend lined up to show up. And that was mainly because of the whole football games for next week. I figured it should be 2 games on the same day, unless I'm mistaken. And and I just thought, I don't know. I just don't know if I should make this my first, if I should make next week my first week off since I started doing this about 6.5 months ago. I don't know. I'll decide over the next few days. Maybe I'll put on a show. Maybe I won't. I just don't know if anybody will, be busy with the football or not or whatever. Mind you, there's football right now, and where some of us are still here. So I don't know. I'll decide on the next few days, but we'll see. Okay. And with that being said, let me welcome in and bring in my pal of, probably a couple of decades now, been around a long time. You guys, or some of you guys, I'm sure a lot of you guys know him. Some of you may not. His name is Rich Cirillo. And
What's up, everybody? How's it going, Ruben?
It's going very, very well. Now that you're here, I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. And a big happy birthday to Kavi out there.
Hey, excellent. See, all the love, Kavi. When you see this, you're going to thank me.
Love.
Awesome. Oh, and of course, as always, thank you, Nikki B, as always. Thank you so much. And Carmen Boston. Yeah, I you know what, but I think it comes from the comic book collecting days. I'm very, what do you call it? Even though I no longer collect comics, and I haven't for 30 years, I still have that completist mentality in me. So I obsess. I literally obsess about things like streaks. So I've got a 6+ month streak going of weekly shows. I feel like I don't want to skip a week because
break the streak.
Because I'm going to break the streak, Yeah. So we'll see. But I appreciate you. And yes, I know. Look, I do it all for fun anyway. So if I decide it's worth taking the week off, then I will. But I don't know. We'll see how I feel in the next few days, and maybe I'll come up with something, and maybe we'll still have a show next week. Fun Friday. Thanks to fans like you, CJ. Yes, it was very much so. Hello, Rick. Okay, talking to themselves now. Everybody's having their own conversations. Every Wednesday is new comic book day. It is. Isn't it Tuesdays, though? How come online you always see the comics on Tuesdays? I always get confused about that.
Like the pre-sales for Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
They kind of pushed it back a day to start selling them.
Oh, okay.
Because I know that's what they do with Neil's store out in California, Krusty Bunker.
Really?
I think online the night before they take pre-orders for Wednesday.
Okay, cool. Also, maybe that's probably it. Murdoch, good to see you all the way from Guantanamo, brother. Hey, I hope you're doing well. And honestly, the whole reason I decided to try this whole YouTube thing out, I mean, the main reason was because the idea of sharing time with like-minded friends in the hobby. And so live, it's what it's all about for me. So the whole thing was about doing live content. So no, I wouldn't do pre-filmed content to post later. It's not my thing. Plus I don't know how to edit yet. I haven't learned how to edit yet. So now if I do it, it'll be live or nothing. What was that commercial from way back when, Rich? Live. Is it live or Memorex?
Memorex, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, it was an audio cassette.
An audio cassette. There you go. Okay.
Oh, you're dating us now.
That's awesome. Yeah. Don't be Goldberg and break the streak in WCW. I didn't know he had that streak because I'm not a big wrestling guy, as you know. But yeah, there you go. There you go, Rickster. The Cal Ripken. There you go. That was a long one. I was really privy more to, and prone to cheering on Lou Gehrig. Not that I cheered him on. Obviously, that was ages before I was even born. But as a diehard sort of history of baseball fan, the whole Yankees history. The Iron Horse was my guy. So I was sad when Ripken beat the record. But that's all.
Got to keep the streak alive.
Yeah. And records are meant to be broken and all that. YouTube's everything. Nunya, first of all, good to see you, sir. But I don't get it. I don't get I don't get the joke, man. You're gonna have to explain it to me. YouTube's Eric Larson. What does he do? Oh, you mean Eric Larson? Are you making a reference because he hasn't missed an issue of Savage Dragon in 30 years or something like that? I think that might be what you're talking about, right? Because yeah, man, that is a long streak. Hey, Mikhail, good to see you, sir. One like the 20. Thank you. Please, yes, everybody, please hit the like if you can. We really appreciate it. And also, if you don't mind, for anybody watching who has watched
Thank you,
before
CJ.
and you're coming back again, I would really appreciate it if you would finally give in and cave and say, hey, okay, I'm going to subscribe to this guy because I watch him. He entertains me enough every now and then. Click the subscribe button. I would appreciate it, and the notification bell so that you get warned about or notified about every time I put up content and what it's going to be about. Yeah, because I'm about 24 away from the next 100 level, so that'll be 400. So it'd be nice to get to the 400 sooner rather than later. So
We can do it tonight. 24 more, guys. Let's do it.
but
Subscribing doesn't cost anything.
that's the thing, Rich, is like I've told these guys probably a couple of months ago. I used to bang the drum for like, oh yeah, subscribe.
Right.
And then I changed the way of thinking is because I noticed a lot, like 99.9% of YouTubers, that's what they do. And yeah, they'll get up high with the subscribers.
Right.
But ultimately, the amount of people that watch the shows, it's a tiny fraction of the subscribers, which tells you that a lot of them just kind of do it as a favor to you, right? They okay, I'll subscribe, but then most of the time they never, right, and then they never come back and never watch anything, right? So I kind of told everybody a couple of months back, like from now on, if you're there and it's not your first time, please do click the subscribe. I want quality subscribers. So if you watch me every now and then, if not regularly, then yeah, I would love to have you as a subscriber. But if you don't and you don't intend to watch again, it's okay. I don't want that kind of subscriber. That's I appreciate the favor if you want to do me a favor, but you don't have to. But guys that watch, man, please give me a subscribe. I'd appreciate it. So thank you very much, Rich. So
yes.
let us get into this, man. So as you know, we've both been around a long time in the hobby. You have been so I got in '97.
Okay.
What year did you get in? First of all, did you get in before the internet?
When you say get in,
into like start buying artwork, let's say.
Okay, so there were two different times for me getting artwork.
Oh,
The first section was in the 80s. I was going to comic conventions. So my sister's husband, he's like 10 years older than me. He took me to my first cons in New York.
nice.
I was like, I don't know, 14, 15, something like that. And that's when I got my first convention sketches. So the one piece I gave you the scan of, that Bill Willingham piece,
Yes.
that is my first sketch from 1986.
Okay.
They used to have local conventions near me in Long Island, and that was like my first intro to original art. So I got about 4 convention sketches in the 80s: Bill Willingham, Bob Layton, Mike Zeck, and there was one other. Oh, Adam Hughes. How could I forget him? So that was like the first stage. And then I kind of had what I called my lost years when I was in my first marriage, where I didn't go to any conventions. I didn't buy comics. It was like a 10-year hiatus. And then a lot of the artists that I really revered started passing away. The Jack Kirby's, the John Buscema's, Gil Kane. And it was really hitting me hard because I wanted to meet these people. And I started going back to conventions around 2002 after I got divorced. And right before that, I started online on eBay. I don't know what triggered me to do it, but I Googled George Perez on eBay.
Okay.
And original art came up. And he was doing the Avenger book at the time, the volume 3. And there was a double page splash on eBay. I think it was like $200-300, which, that was the most I had ever spent on something. So I kind of bit the bullet, bought it, and I was amazed because I didn't know that original comic book art was larger than the actual printed book.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that blew me away. I
Wow.
wasn't aware that it was all in black and white for the most part.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So my only intro to it before that was just sketches at a con. So I
Right.
didn't know what an actual published page looked like until that first purchase. and that was in 1999. And I went down that rabbit hole and
Okay,
just
so you
went
remember
from there.
you remember for a fact the first published piece was 99?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Okay.
like I said, that was from an Avenger book that George Perez had penciled, Alvey had inked,
Alvey inked, yeah.
and from that point on, because I've always been a collector, whether it was comic books, toys,
Something, right? Yeah.
yeah, you name it. So
Yeah.
once I got into original comic art, that triggered, okay, where do I go to find Perez art? Where do I go to find Adam Hughes art? And that introduced me to different collectors that were there already. So if you wanted Perez art, there was one or two guys that kind of had the market cornered,
Right.
and you had to go through
Let's
them
call
because
let,
they,
let, let's call it two guys. We know it was two
yeah,
guys.
yeah. Well, one guy had the covers and one guy had the
Yeah.
interiors.
Exactly.
So that led me down that path. If I wanted any Perez art. Also, too, I was working with a limited budget at the time, so I couldn't afford certain guys. So I went with newer artists that were like a lower price.
Okay.
So I couldn't afford a lot of Adam Hughes published art at the time, but I liked Terry Dotson, and his stuff was reasonably cheaper at the time, like 20 years ago. So there was different tiers depending on how much I wanted to spend, and then as you get deeper into it, you're like, okay, you got to go through this guy for this artist, and this guy has the market cornered on someone else,
Yeah.
and that's how you started networking.
You can learn pretty quickly, right? Like
Oh
it
yeah,
wasn't yeah, especially back then because there was a lot less reps and dealer anyways, you know?
yeah. I mean, I started hitting some of the shows, the smaller New York shows at the time. So I met some of the dealers and saw what they had. But the problem is when you first get into the hobby, you have no idea of what pricing is. So you don't
Right.
know if you're getting a good deal or not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and and back then I was buying anything and everything. So I remember emailing Terry Dotson directly, and he was doing Gen X at the time. And I was like, "What pages do you have from this issue?" And he's like, "Oh, I just have these, pedestrian, pages that don't have a lot of action, a lot of superheroes on it." I was like, "Take it, whatever you have, I'll buy it." I didn't care. And
Yeah.
then later on, you realize like it's a better investment to get like, a splash page or a cover or, you know, the hero
Right.
in costume or action or something like that. But back then, it was like just a feeding frenzy of whatever I could find.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think for most of us it was like that at the beginning, right? It's just you're so overwhelmed by everything
Mhm.
and you want to buy it all,
Right.
right? Like you really you're just like, oh, I want to get everything. But of course, like you said, you quickly realize, okay, well, shit, I can't afford this guy's stuff and I can't afford that guy's stuff.
Right.
So it's funny that you mentioned it that even early on, you were already what I call, and I've talked about this on my shows many times, you were already collecting down right from the
Mhm.
get-go, right? Knowing that, well, I can't afford this.
Right.
I've got to go a rung lower, let's call it, and get these artists that are more affordable for me.
Yeah, my theory and my way I attacked it was always get the most for my money. So if I could get
Yeah,
5
the
pages,
bang for your buck.
yeah, if I could get 5 pages for the same price of a splash or a cover, I would go for the 5 pages, you know.
Yeah, right.
As I've gotten more into the hobby and more seasoned, if you want to call it that, you learn
Good
sometimes
word.
you're better off going for the one higher priced item that it'll retain its value better, over
Right.
time. But it all depends what you're looking for.
Yeah, yeah, sure, for sure. Before I forget, I don't want to forget. CJ, this one goes out to you, my friend. Your question earlier, this is why I put it up. Obviously, I was wondering if perhaps Rich might see it and answer himself, but to answer your question, I'll just do it really quickly. He is not from New England. He is in New York, in the New York area. So, yes, that is.
Yeah, I've had people ask me if that's a New England accent,
Oh, really?
to which I say, "What accent?"
Oh, that's funny. Anybody else? Okay, good. Okay, so you had mentioned to me when we were talking privately earlier
Yes.
we threw out a few things, a few things that you wanted to kind of get into the meat, the nitty
Mhm.
gritty, and talk about. One of those topics being people's collectors' budgets. What
Right.
the budgets are, how they budget. Do they budget? Do they stay within budget? Do they not? That whole topic you feel doesn't get enough attention, at least not in public conversation,
It
right?
seems like a taboo subject, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, look, it's a hobby made up of all different walks of life. You have some very wealthy collectors, and then you have people on more modest budgets. Okay, so my question was always how, if you don't have a huge budget, how can you still collect? What you love. How can you go after the same pieces as other people? And you know, I've heard friends over the years say, they've taken out of their 401ks, or they've
Wow.
had a bonus coming in. And very rarely do people admit and say, "Yeah, I ran up my credit card." And that was a road I went down at one point, just because I wanted to buy in bulk. I'd meet an artist at a show, and I wanted to buy, multiple pages, try to get a better deal. And a lot of times I found myself running up credit cards. And
Wow.
unfortunately with me, I'm an artist. I've worked in the apparel industry for over 30 years, and with a lot of clothing companies, especially like during the recession or whenever, they downsize sometimes. So there was twice in my life I found myself being laid off from my job.
Right.
So when you have credit card bills you got to pay, you kind of you back up against the wall.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would just say, as a cautionary tale, being in the hobby over 20 years, be careful with your budget. There's definitely pieces we all would love to have, and we definitely know sometimes they're out of our budget. But sometimes being smart and being a little more controlled with our budget does go a long way. Saves a lot of stress down the road.
That's true indeed. Jason wants to know: does wife mean the same thing as budget?
In some people's cases, not in my case. Thankfully, with my wife, she collects certain things. I collect certain things. We've never given each other a hard time about either of our collecting. I mean, the bills got to be paid, but beyond that, I'm very fortunate to have a wife that enjoys the hobby. She goes to the shows with me. Anyone that's run into me at the shows have definitely run into my wife with me. So she's been very supportive. But I didn't always have that, because
Yeah.
this wasn't a first marriage for either of us.
Right.
So my first wife was not as open to it. She was very much on a budget, and it wasn't going to work. Actually, a funny story. When I was collecting early on, this had to be around like 2002, I want to say, and I was getting divorced, and my wife wanted to keep the house. So I was going to get a portion of what we had put into the house. And instead of investing in another property, what did I do? I ran out
Uh-oh.
and bought comic book art.
Oh my god. Oh my
So
god.
this just happened to be at the time when
Wow.
the collector that had most of the Perez Avenger covers was selling them through Profiles in History back then.
Right.
So I took the proceeds from the divorce, and I wound up buying four covers from them, four really nice Perez Avenger covers.
Wow.
So that was my first huge purchase.
Wow. Okay. I get a quick comment coming in from Comic Car Boston. So, Rich, I totally agree. Prices have shot through the roof for those of us who came in relatively earlier. Is the solution being happy for what we have and purchasing what we can if possible? That's wisdom right there, right?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, there comes a point where you do have to be happy with what you have. I came in, like I said, 1999. Prices weren't super cheap, but they're more reasonable than they are today. Most of the covers I was buying back then were in the range from $200 up to like $800,
Right.
depending on which artist you were talking about. Um, but I know guys that got into the hobby in the 70s or the 80s and were paying, $20 a panel page,
Yeah,
$100.
like our pal Mickey from last week, who was on the show last week.
Yeah, I mean,
He's
I
been around a
wasn't in
long
that.
time, so
I wasn't in that age bracket.
yeah,
Like I said, I didn't go to my first convention till I was like 14 or 15. Probably had $20 in my pocket, and I spent it on back issues.
yeah,
You know, I didn't have the wherewithal to even look for original art until '99, when I was approaching 30 at that point.
right.
So yeah, I wish I had gotten into it earlier, but you know, deals can always be had. They can always be found. Um, even to this day, if you keep yourself in the hobby, network with people. Timing is everything. Sometimes someone needs to unload something, whether they need repairs to their house, their kids are getting married, their kids are going to college, whatever. Sometimes people will unload things. And probably the best advice I can give someone if you're going to buy a high priced item is try to work out a payment plan with them. That's worked in a lot of people's favors.
Yeah.
Something that works for both of you, whether it's a couple of months or whatever works. And that way, even with my job, for those that don't know, I work for Continuity and Neil Adams Company, and we do live shows twice a week selling art. And a lot of people buy the more expensive pieces through payment plans,
Mm.
and people have gotten some really great items, covers and splashes that way that they would have normally not been able to afford. So I'm sure nowadays with the skyrocketing prices, a lot of dealers, a lot of collectors will work with you if it's a feasible, agreeable plan between you.
Yep, that's true. That's true. Out of curiosity, what type of terms do the Adams family typically give?
Well, Neil set the terms originally, and they were very open at the beginning. We always asked for a quarter to a third down on the piece, and
Fair
then
enough.
pay it as you can.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah,
Wow.
Neil really wanted to get his art into people's hands, that couldn't normally afford it, and he offered pieces at different price points. The only problem with that is when you leave it open ended like that, a lot of people they'll do the down payment and then you never hear from them again.
Right.
So we've actually had to start backtracking with some people and say, do you still want this piece? And a lot of times they've totally forgotten about it. I mean, a lot of people did contact us when Neil passed away, saying, "Oh, I forgot I paid this amount down on that. Do you still have the piece?" And then we work it out with them.
Right.
But there have been other people, we're talking a couple of years, we haven't heard back from, and if they don't want the piece, we'll refund them what they've paid into it and then sell it to someone else.
Wow. Even when they of their own accord have forgotten about it themselves, but for 2 years, you guys
Yeah,
will give the money
yeah,
back?
yeah. Neil was always very fair with people.
Wow, that's really
He,
fair.
he
Yeah.
he he had one regular viewer. The guy had lost his job, and initially he asked Neil. He says, "I hate to do this, but can you guys refund me my money?" So
Mm,
Neil said, "That's not a problem. If you need the money, I completely understand. But, down the road, you may, get another job soon and you may still want this piece." He's like, "We don't have a problem holding on to it for you. And if you want to pick it up, when you're able to again, once you have a job and some financial stability." And the guy decided to take that second route,
oh,
and he got a job down the road. He paid off the piece, and
wow.
he was thrilled that even through the turmoil, the down turn in his career, he was still able to own this piece down the road, and he was very happy for that.
Wow. No, that's fantastic. That's great to hear. I'm glad to hear. Um, yeah, that it's not often that you hear. And listen, I will admit, like I'm a very nice person. I'm not a fan of giving
Right.
time payments.
Hmm.
just because in my limited experience, people have screwed me over, right?
No, understandable.
Yeah, and so when I'm now when I do it, I try to make it on very like tight terms. Like I lay out the terms clearly and say, by this time, I'd like to know how much is each payment going to be? What's the frequency of each payment going to be? So when can I finally expect the final pay? I want it very detailed.
Right.
Otherwise, I just it always goes bad, and I'd rather not deal with that. So it's nice to hear that a story about somebody who's giving much more looser restrictions on the time payments, and that everything sort of it works out for the best for most people in most cases.
Yeah, I mean that was Neil's personality. He kept it very loose, very open ended. I think actually his son Jason proposed the idea of a time payment program, and for the most part, it's worked very well for the company. Like I
Yeah,
said, there are some people that kind of fall off the map, and we try to get a hold of them. But I would say by and large, like we actually love when someone's come to us like after a year or so and say, I wasn't able to pay, but now I'm able to pay it off, and
yeah,
I can finally get that piece in my collection, and that just like warms your heart that you
yeah. It's
know
a great feeling, right?
yeah,
Like,
they have this piece they wouldn't have been able to afford otherwise.
yeah,
And like I said, that was Neil's idea to make his art affordable to people. Because not everybody walks around with 10 grand in their pocket or
yeah.
whatever the price is.
Exactly, for sure. Hey, Carlos, if you're still there, here, let me just put this back up. So, we were talking about when you were talking about the whole, budgeting with the credit card thing, and
Right.
Carlos said, made a quick statement, cash only. So, Carlos, I'm just curious if you're still there and listening. Let me know. Are you saying that for you personally, you only buy art in person? Because that's obviously the only way you're going to pay cash, right?
Mhm.
Let me know. I'm curious because I know that there are people who do only they just sort of I don't know. I guess everybody has their reasons, but I do know I've heard people tell me in the past, oh, I only like to buy in person. I just like to buy at cons. So yeah, just let me know. I'm curious if you only buy at cons because you just don't want to pay with anything other than whatever cash you may have available. That's it's interesting because I'm curious how many do. I can't imagine how difficult it must be for someone to be able to resist the siren call of just buying art online because it's so easy to find it and buy it, right? Like it's just the
It's
internet makes
just
it so
a button
easy.
push away.
Yeah, that's right. It's just about doing a couple of clicks. You could do it in your underwear for crying out loud. So yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, but I can't imagine even if Carlos. Okay. Carlos has chimed in with so no PayPal or Zelle. If okay, so you do buy online. Okay.
I think he's basically saying he doesn't buy something if he doesn't have the funds for it.
Right, that's what I think so too. Yeah, but just use discretionary funds for discretionary
Sure.
hobby. Yeah, sure, exactly. Yeah.
The,
Um.
the, the one disclaimer I will say to people buying art, and we actually have had this during our live shows with continuity, do not drunk bid. You will get yourself in trouble.
Well, I think we could stretch that out to like expand on like do not do anything drunk. Like just sleep it off. You'll be better off.
I remember years ago I went to the Heroes Con, and we went to the art auction, and in the back they had a bar, and
Oh,
a friend of mine was having a few drinks too many, and he was bidding up stuff left and right, and the next morning he was like, "Oh my god, what did I buy?" he
oh
didn't
yeah.
he
Oh my
didn't
god.
remember any of it.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's not good. That's not a good. If you get that kind of level of drunk,
Mm.
where you don't remember things, that's definitely not good. Especially especially if you're a collector.
Yeah, his friends were literally like slapping his arm down so he wouldn't bid anymore.
But you're saying he didn't have memory of doing that?
Yeah, he didn't remember any of it.
Wow. Can you imagine?
And I
Can
think
you?
he ran up a bill like over 10 grand.
Oh, that's sick, man. That is so sick. Oh, sorry, I already put that one up. What did I want to get here? Number one Marvel fan, my friend says, I have every key Marvel comic high grade I could sell to fund more art, and I've been considering it. I want it all. We believe me, those of us who no longer have comics and who are only in art, we all understand you. So a lot of us were you and did what you're considering.
Yeah,
So
a lot of people
you
have
know,
gone that route,
yeah.
sell the
So you
comics and
know,
buy art.
yeah,
Well,
exactly.
it depends what's more important to you. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
the comics, especially CGC graded books, they've had such a resurgence in recent years. You know, especially since the pandemic, a lot of people have been investing in graded comics the same way people have invested in original art. So
Right.
it all depends what you enjoy more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't say it better myself. Comic Boston is giving the Marvel fan some advice here. So actually, you might want to think about it as original art is one of a kind, provided you are all right with lower grade keys. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do for sure. You've got options when you have all those expensive books. Those books give you options because they do represent a lot of money, especially you say they're in high grade, right? So yeah, you've got options. You could sell some, you could
I,
sell
I've,
them all, but
I've heard a lot of longtime collectors say when they stopped collecting comics primarily and got into art, it was because they got to the phase of they could only get like a better grade on something. And then when they realized art was one of a kind, you know, each page, each published page was just one of that was a lot more appealing to them, you know, as opposed to having the highest grade on a book or something like that.
right.
Again, it's all what appeals to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at the Rickster.
There
Sold
you
all his
go.
books in 2017, just 5 years back, So yeah. And Rick, does that mean because you're specifying your key books, does that mean that you hung on to a comic book collection, but you no longer have keys? Or did you just sort of sell all your comics off? Let me know. And Comic Art Boston says the books do well because it's a wider market. Well, of course, it's a much, much larger market, the
Oh, for
comic,
sure.
of course, and it always will be, right? So thank you, Mr. Easy Go Lucky, as always. I appreciate you. Yes, everybody, please hit the like. And once again, if you've watched this show before or any of my shows, any of my content, but don't bother to hit subscribe, please hit subscribe. I promise you, YouTube will not spam you. You will not receive anything other than perhaps notifications about my shows coming up. So thank you. Okay. So Rick still has a big comic collection. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So you can have both, right? There's ways, depending on what you have, there's ways to have your cake and eat it too, so to speak, right?
Well,
Um,
there's another rabbit hole that I've gone down, and that's vintage toys. So,
oh, have you?
yes, yeah,
Vintage toys. Wow.
I've always been a big toy collector. So,
Okay. Wow. But originally you were a toy collector, but just sort of more modern stuff, and then later segued into the vintage stuff, or was it always vintage?
I always had my toys from when I was a kid.
Oh, you can't. You never lost your parents never threw that stuff out.
No, I held on to the toys, the comics, all that stuff.
Fantastic!
So
Wow,
I had my Mego figures. I had, you know, the original GI Joes, Big Jim, later Star Wars figures,
wow,
and you know, I've kind of stepped my foot in both arenas over the years, and it's actually funny. The live shows that we do now with selling art on there, that actually originated on the toy groups on Facebook.
oh, oh,
Yeah,
wow,
I was in a few toy groups back in like 2018, 19, and they started doing those live auctions on Facebook. And then I was one of a few people talking to Neil when he wanted to not do as many conventions every weekend.
right,
And he was trying to see what other options there were. And like I said, me and a few other people had approached him about why don't you do online sales? And this was pre-COVID,
right,
and I was like, yeah, it works for the toy websites, you know, the toy Facebook pages. Let's kind of, you know, mold it so that it works for original art, you know,
hmm,
between buy it nows and auctions, you know, bidding and all that stuff. And by the time COVID hit, we were up and running already. We continuity had been doing it for I would say a good 6 or 7 months before COVID shut everything down.
Right.
and they already had a built-in audience. So we were kind of ahead of the game when everybody else had to kind of find means to support
Yeah.
themselves.
Scrambling for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Hey, I didn't want to forget this for you, Murdoch. He just wants to know, since you work at Continuity,
Mhm.
did you ever hear about Neil or his family saying anything? Were there ever plans on collecting trades of the titles from the 80s?
Before Neil passed, he definitely mentioned he wanted to get
Uh,
the continuity characters going again.
okay.
I will tell you this: there's a lot of projects in the works right now. A lot of them I can't mention, but there actually was one story that was completely drawn that wasn't completely published. It was called Rise of Magic, and this was a an ongoing. It was like a 25-part story that
Oh,
they started in the 90s,
yeah, I was gonna say the one that started in the 90s. Yeah.
and then continuity stopped publishing, I think, around 96.
Right.
But all those issues had been penciled already, and there has been talk of finally publishing those.
Okay. Even since his passing?
Yeah, a lot of the books were not drawn by Neil; they were drawn by other artists.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Most of them. Yeah.
So, like I said, they are getting those together.
Okay.
Like I said, there's a lot of projects they're working on right now.
Right.
So should be having some great stuff coming out in the coming months.
Yeah,
So
sounds exciting. Yeah. So there
yeah.
you go, Murdoch. I hope that's good news to your ears. It's interesting to me. I wouldn't mind rereading some of that stuff again
Mhm.
myself. I used to buy all those titles myself in the 80s. So
Right.
I did want to tackle, just really quick, Comic Art Boston, thank you. Just FYI, I believe in order to get notifications, it has to be the double whammy. So you have to be subscribed and hit the notify me button, or the bell icon, or the notify me button. That's how I believe it works. I can tell you that I tested it. That's what I did. I clicked both, and 30 minutes before the airtime, I get an email, and then again at the airtime. So exactly as the show begins, I get another notification. So, but I believe it has to be both subscribed and notified. Notify me, or notification bell. So give that a try, and let me know. I'm curious if you can let me know. Didn't want to forget also, Stanley. Good evening, sir. Good to see you as always, my friend. He wants to know: do you prefer black and white or color art?
Yes.
And there we go. Thank you very much, Stanley. We'll come back.
Good
We'll
night,
see you next
everyone.
week. Good night, everybody.
No, early on it was black and white. It was published art that I went after. Then for a while I was looking for more stuff to hang on the walls. So I started going more after color and painted pieces and more commission pieces. And now I kind of kick myself that I got rid of a lot of the published stuff.
Oh,
So yeah, I have love for both. I mean, a lot of collecting is nostalgia based. So when we're talking that
true.
the published pages, especially, I found out over the years, the younger I was when I read a comic book, the more nostalgia it holds for me.
Okay.
So I started collecting comics when I was like 5 years old. I
Right.
couldn't even fully read at the time. And I remember my mom helping me with certain words to read.
Right.
And I was always into the art. That's what drew me in.
Like me.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
and you know, when I came across, or still do come across, pages from like the early 70s,
Hmm.
that's the strongest like nostalgia draw for me.
Wow.
But then again, I do love newer artists, up and coming. I love getting commissions. I've started many sketchbooks over the years that I've gotten filled over like 20-year time period. So my collecting's all over the map. It's not one or the other.
You should, if you ever have time, you should check out the round table I did
Mhm.
with three other guys. The focus was on commission collecting,
Cool.
and yeah, I wanted to do that show because I am not a commission guy. I've done a few, whatever, a handful, whatever, right? Exceptions to the rule. But yeah, I could never put up with all the negative aspects of commission collecting. I don't have it in me. I don't have the
Mhm.
patience. And but I admire those people that do, and that's why I did that whole show with the three other guys, and it might be up your alley. I think I'd like to do another roundtable show in the future about the same topic, commission collecting, and so maybe for a future one, maybe you'd hop on with me.
Actually, if you get a chance, there used to be a magazine called Rough Stuff
Yeah. Oh
that
yeah, I used to buy that. Yeah.
that Bob McLeod
Yeah.
edited,
On McLeod. Yeah.
and he gave me the opportunity to write an article for his magazine back in, I think it was like 2008 or nine, and the article was all about getting commissions at a convention. It's actually a cool like timepiece if you read it now, because I specifically talk about certain collectors and what their themes were at the time.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you ever
Blast from the
come
past.
across it, it's a good read.
Cool. Number one Marvel fan says he wants to clarify. He's been selling all the DC books to buy
Mhm.
art. So good for you. You know, at least you're on your way. And props for the past few years. But it's just hard to sell your Marvel. I get it. I get it. Hey, slowly but surely. It may never happen. It may happen. Only you will know. And believe me, you will know. If that desire hits you, you'll know it's time. So just all in good time, as I always say, and you don't have to force anything. Murdoch says, "Vintage toys, that way lies madness," says he, the video game collector.
Yeah, thankfully I don't collect video games because I've been seeing the prices of those lately. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't quite understand how now it's a thing to buy a graded, sealed, slabbed video game. I, you know,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
something you can play, but
yeah. I don't
I
know.
don't
Yeah.
know. I've had an issue with slabbed comics too, so that's
No,
just me.
exactly. That's a whole rabbit hole we don't want to go into tonight, anyways. Jason asks, "What's the large piece behind Rich?" I already knew what it was. I kind of knew what it was, whatever. But yeah, there you go.
So that is the color guide to the Merry Marvel Marching Confusion poster by Michael Golden, and this was hand colored by Golden. I'm getting a little bit of a glare on there,
Yeah, it's a bit tough, but
but it is pretty large. I'd say it's about the size of the poster, and like I said, it is hand colored by Golden. So I used to have that poster hanging in my room as a teenager. I had sent away for it through the comic book, and I think it took like 6 months to finally get to me. And that's one of my favorite pieces. And Golden's one of my favorite artists as well.
yeah, I remember. I remember when I first got into comics, and I'd be flipping through the comics. And for me, it was only in '82. I was much older than you. I was already 12 when I first got into it. And I remember flipping through some comics and seeing this tiny little, not even maybe an eighth of a page or smaller ad. Oh, get the Merry Marvel
Mhm.
marching whatever poster,
Yeah.
only 50 cents. Right? I was just like, what? This guy was doing mail order for 50 cents for a poster? Like, is that all they really sold for? Like, it was bizarre.
And did you actually get one of the posters?
No. See, I was brought up in those days being told, and I don't know where I heard it. It must have been like on the local news or something. But we like I grew up being told, "Oh, mail order. Oh no, you don't know who you're giving money to. You don't know who you're sending money to. You don't do that. You're gonna get ripped off." So I used to look at CBG and mind you, not when I was a kid, but when I was like in my late teens and into early 20s, seeing all the original art ads and comic ads. And I was like, oh my God, I would love to get some of that stuff. Not the comics, because comics I could still get locally, but the art, I was like, oh wow, it would be awesome to get some of that. But I was terrified. I was like, yeah, it was just jammed into my head that no, you don't send strangers money. Like, are you
Right.
crazy?
Well,
Yeah.
I remember when I was a real little kid, they had those ads for like the Roman soldiers or
Oh yeah, the
Civil
figures. Yeah.
War,
Yeah.
and I sent away for one of them, never got anything.
Oh really?
Um, so yeah, I think the Golden Poster was the first thing I mailed away for and actually got, even if it was 6 months later.
Oh, so
But
you got it.
but the odd thing about it was actually a catalog folded. On one side was the poster, and then you folded
Oh.
out the other side, and it was an ad for all of Sal Q's
Oh, are you
portfolio.
serious?
Yeah, so
Wow.
it advertised like the Black Widow portfolio by Paul Galassi and a few other portfolios. Yeah,
So
so
so you're
it was
telling me
it
you're
was a
telling me
folded catalog.
So you're telling everybody here listening now that anybody who ever owned that famous Michael Golden poster,
The original.
it's not really just a poster. It's just the kind of the backside of
Yes.
his product catalog at Sal
Yeah.
Q Productions.
Yeah, it was folded into like fours, and on one side was an
Oh,
advertisement for all those
brutal.
companies. Yeah.
Brutal. No wonder it was so cheap. What a clever way to get people to buy his catalog, though.
Yeah, there you go.
That's insane. Wow.
Advertising.
That's good to know. I can't believe it took until right now tonight for that to be revealed to me,
I,
at least. I don't know.
I'm so glad we had this moment, and
Hey, it's very meaningful. I mean, like I
you
said,
can live the rest of your life, knowing this now.
well, I can live the rest of my life glad I never sent my money in. That's what I'd be
Yeah.
glad about. Because
No,
even
it wasn't a bad post. I was just kind of taken back that it was like, a catalog folded.
yeah, no,
And,
I
and
get
it wasn't super large either.
yeah, I get you, Rick. I guess you were talking about. I'm assuming it would have been cool to have a team book with the continuity characters. I
Mhm.
think that's what you were probably referring to, right, Rick? Yeah, that could have been fun. It's funny because out of all those different characters they did produce comics for, yeah, they were all typically solo books. It's funny that it never really became a true no team book kind of thing formed or whatever, other than
Yeah,
Earth 4. But did they ever? You remember Earth 4
I do.
with the Elementals, right?
Do,
But
do
I
you
don't know.
know? Do you know who the original artist was supposed to be for Earth 4?
Supposed to be no who?
It was going to be Gene Colan.
Really?
Yeah, Neil always wanted to work with Gene Colan,
Oh,
and he was going to work on Earth 4 for them. And it came down to they were going to have contracts signed, and at the last minute, Gene decided to go back to Marvel.
oh
So,
wow.
yeah,
An exclusive to Marvel type deal, right?
yeah. So
Wow.
it was almost Gene Colan's book.
That would have been so wild, to think, to think about. I'm trying to picture, Gene Colan's continuity characters. It's odd to think about that.
Yeah, when we get to the Captain America page that I sent you a scan of, we'll touch base with Colan a little bit more.
Okay, sounds good. Comic Art Boston, yeah, thank you. You should you of all people, you should be one of my subscribers. How I know that that it's every Sunday, to be here. That's not the point. You should still click subscribe for me. Anyways, Maki Poo Poo, my pal Maki Poo Poo in New York wants to know, Rich, where in New York do you live?
I am in Long Island,
Oh, there you go.
but I
Oh.
work in Manhattan at the Continuity Studios.
How long is that commute? Are you training it in or driving it in?
Yeah, Long Island has a railroad. It takes me about 40 minutes to get
Oh,
in.
okay.
It's not
Not
bad.
too, not too bad then.
Beats
Okay.
traffic.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Rich's Elementals collection makes me drool. That's what Rickster says.
Yeah, I loved Bill Willingham's Elementals early on, and that
Yeah.
was like I told Ruben before. That was my first sketch that I got at a convention was from Willingham of one of his elemental characters. So that's one of those books that you don't see pages often, and when I do, I jump on them. And also too, they've stayed fairly affordable over the years. Where like when I was talking about nostalgia, one of my earliest books as a kid was Captain Marvel 31 by Jim Starlin. Try finding a page from Captain Marvel 31 for under 10 grand. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Uh, I've had the opportunity years ago to get a couple of pages, and at the time I thought they were too expensive, and now it's just out of reach. So
I
I
got
always do try to find those obscure books that I collected as a kid, and try to fill my nostalgia void with those. Also, too, if you look at my gallery, I have the cover to Justice Machine #1 by John
oh,
Byrne,
right.
another independent comic. And
I used to love the Justice Machine, man. I used to love it.
yeah, I loved all those independent books, Elementals, Justice Machine,
Yeah.
you name it.
Mike Gustovich, man.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I was all into those books. So yeah, sometimes that can be a little bit of a way to get a more affordable piece by an artist. Compare a John Byrne Justice Machine cover to an X-Men cover or FF cover. You
Yeah.
know, one is kind of in reach, and the other ones are just out of reach for me personally.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
I hear
you
you.
know,
A lot of us hear you. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, not just comic book art. I learned this too working with Neil and the art that he sold. A lot of artists worked outside of comic books. So Neil did a lot of advertising art. He did a lot of designs for amusement parks, Universal Studios. So
Right.
if,
I
if you want
remember.
a piece, if you want a piece of art from an artist, sometimes if you look out of the box a little bit and don't just go after comic book pages,
Yeah. Hmm.
you can find beautiful art that they did outside of
Yeah, like
Marvel and DC.
specialty stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a lot more affordable, and you may get a lot more bang for your buck.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there was a time, as you well remember, right? Back in the day when it was like, of course, it was, the hobby was in its infancy.
Hmm.
And it was like back then, it was like, oh, specialty piece. Ugh, I don't want that crap, you
Right.
know. And it was really treated like the ugly stepchild type
Hmm.
thing, right? But the hobby has grown so much over the last decade, 2 decades. Now it's so much more, thankfully, so much more acceptable. There's a lot of people that, yeah, they do because of the reasons that you set out, right? Everything's gone so expensive that it's like, well, if I want pieces from this artist and if I'm crafty enough, I know that he did stuff for, this amusement park or that specialty thing that he was hired to do, that it wasn't, published comic book stories, let's say, right?
Well,
Uh,
even Bill Willingham, before he did Elementals, he
right.
was working for TSR.
Yeah.
So there are people that look for his Dungeons and Dragons art.
Yeah.
Not that it's readily available, but
Yeah.
like I said, sometimes if you look outside the published pages, you can get a really good deal if you want a piece from that artist.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Very, very true. I wanted to just quickly. Commodore Boston was asking, and I'm going to quickly answer because we're going to segue, being that we're coming into the first hour of our show tonight, everyone. And Comic Art Boston, my hair's all screwed up here. Comic Art says, so Rich, do you do commissions yourself as well? And I wonder if it's because you were in his gallery, and he does. And actually, that's something we're going to talk about tonight. However,
Right.
as we're going into ending our first hour, I was thinking, Rich, if it's cool with you, why don't we get into first? I think it's a good time to segue. And why don't
Mhm.
we show some art in your collection first?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then once we come out of showing the art, maybe that'll be our next topic, and we can focus in on, we can talk a little bit about you and your own artwork that you create.
Yeah. I mean, I figure we got about another 5 hours to go. So,
You hear that, Stanley?
we'll make Stanley happy tonight. So the first segment's going to be on Rich's gallery.
Oh, that is so funny. All righty. Okay, so let me let me cue up some art here. Let's
Dun,
see.
dun, 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 dun. And the piece number one is
Hold on a sec here. Okay, so yes. What are we gonna put first? Hold on. I want to make sure I've got everything queued up here. Yeah. Okay. So I'll just go in the order that I loaded
stand by.
that I loaded them. Yes, everyone. So here we go. We're going to start off because Rich brought it up already earlier, and we're going to start off with this Bill Willingham Elementals sketch. Here we go. And yeah, I didn't do slides for all the sketches because I figured, well, there's no colored versions to put next to it or whatever.
Right.
And I figured we'll do it this way, and this way we kind of both can sort of stay on camera at the same time, anyways.
So as I mentioned to Ruben earlier, this was my first convention sketch. This was back in 1986. Living in Long Island, they used to have small comic conventions in Rockville Center from a comic store called Cosmic Comics, and each month they'd have like a different artist there. So Bill Willingham was the first one I met. I loved Elementals at the time, and I asked him for a sketch. I think it was, I don't know, $10, $20 at the time. And this actually is a pretty large one. This is on 14 by 17 paper, really tight pencils. And I had actually sold all of my sketches back in 1998 on eBay. I had just bought a house with my first wife, and over the years, I had tried to get these back. And I found this same piece on eBay maybe, I think it was like 2 years to the day after I sold it. And I got it back for basically the same price I sold it for.
You mean
Uh,
this one?
this particular one, yeah.
Oh, you let this one go?
I had let this go back in '98 when we had just bought a house.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I,
Wow.
I,
Okay.
I had sold off a lot of my comics, toys, art, everything.
I'm
Um,
curious, Rich. I'm curious. I'm curious. Uh, given that, and I remember. I don't know if you remember. I know you were in the audience when we were chatting about. You commented a few weeks back
mhm,
about how your elemental sketch, and then I said, oh, that's so funny because in '86, the same year you got this sketch,
right.
I was at a local con here in Montreal with my buddy, and
Uh-huh,
he ended up getting a Willingham sketch, and he was asking me, what character do I get? And I said, well, if it's the hero, Monolith. If
uh-huh.
it's the villain, you got to get Ratman, and he got the Ratman.
He got Ratman also.
Yeah, you got Ratman also. So it's so funny, that two of us the same year with Willingham at a small comic show locally end up asking for or well, in my case it was my friend, not me, but still, and then decades later we both end up being
And
comic art collectors.
36 years later, here we are to
Yeah,
talk about it.
yeah, that's crazy, right? Like it's so funny. But I wanted to ask you is, do you remember at the time? And I can tell you, I remember my friend paid $15. That was what he was charging for his Ratman sketch.
That's probably what I paid. I really don't
Okay.
recall exactly. I know the range. I know it wasn't more than $20. So yeah, if it was the same year, it was probably the same price. Um,
Okay. Okay.
and it blew me away because I had never seen original comic art before that, so I wasn't sure like what kind of paper they drew on. I
Yeah.
I always wanted to be a comic artist myself, so I wasn't sure what kind of paper to use, what kind of pencils or ink do they
Right.
use. Um, so it was amazing to see him draw this, and this one was really large. Some of the sketches I got soon thereafter were on smaller paper,
Mm.
or it was, there wasn't one standard page
Yeah.
that they drew on.
But I I
um,
I um I imagine that this sheet that this is drawn on, I imagine it's not bigger than 9 by 12, is it?
it's 14 by 17.
Really?
Yeah, this is a large piece.
Wow, it's even bigger than it's well wider at least than a standard piece of Bristol board.
Yeah,
Wow.
I guess it was just the Bristol pad that he had with him
Yeah,
that
that's
day.
what he had. Yeah, yeah. That's
um,
fantastic.
and,
So that
and
really makes it more impressive because that means that
yeah,
the Ratman is larger than I imagined it to be, you know?
yeah, this is pretty large. The thing was too, back in the day, like I always went for obscure characters because I always felt like artists got bored of drawing the same guy over and over again. And then as
Yeah.
years went on, I found out artists actually like to draw the same character over and over
Yeah.
again because they can crank out more drawings at a show.
Faster. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
they, they don't have to dig into reference and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, I went for Ratman, just trying to be obscure, and yeah,
Yeah,
love
but,
the
but
piece.
but you know what though, Rich? Like if you think about it, it really I wouldn't like maybe today it's considered obscure, but I mean in '86, Elementals is only 2 years in since its debut.
Right.
And if you remember how slow he was at putting it out,
Mhm,
I mean, 2 years in, he probably had like 8 issues out or 10 issues or
mhm,
something, so it wasn't obscure. Like if you were into the whole indie craze of the time, you probably were into Elementals. And if you weren't Elementals, you probably remember who Ratman was only 2 years later. You know what I mean?
right. Well,
Yeah.
just to give you a point of reference on obscure, the second sketch I got was from Bob Layton at that same show, like a month or two later. And what would you think I asked Bob Layton for? Hercules, Iron Man?
Well,
No.
that's what everybody would ask for.
Right.
But yeah,
No,
who'd you go for?
I asked for Red Wolf from the future.
Red Wolf from the. What do you mean? Who the hell is Red Wolf from the future? I only know one Red
Exactly.
Wolf.
Yeah, he was in the Hercules miniseries.
Oh, I haven't read it since it came out as a 12, 13-year-old, So yeah, okay. That's
So
funny.
yeah,
Wow. Oh, that
I
is
was always going for the obscure ones.
but it's fun. It's fun to do that sometimes, right? To do more obscure stuff because it's got, it's like,
Well,
ugh. How
Well,
many
like,
Iron Mans can you draw? You know?
yeah, again, I thought I was being helpful to the artists, that they were getting bored,
Sure.
drawing a million Batmans or Spider-Mans or whatever. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you find out they actually don't like doing these obscure characters because
Right.
they've never drawn them
They never done
before.
it before. Yeah.
They have to look up reference and
Yeah.
what costume and all that.
Yeah. It ends up being more work than fun for them. That's
Right,
yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
also too, if you're going to a show, you want to crank out as many drawings as possible.
I
You
mean,
know,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
want to make you want to make your money back, and that's understandable.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah, if it's a guy that they draw all the time, they'll love to draw him. They can draw it in their sleep.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the things I always do, because I love Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, and whenever I see him at the show, I always, because I loved his Batman versus Hulk book so much.
Sure.
I always dreamed of, if he drew Marvel books, what would they look like?
Right.
So I always ask him for Marvel characters at,
Really?
at the conventions. So
Oh,
I was fortunate enough to get like a Captain America from him and a Scarlet Witch. But
that's cool.
every time I ask him for these characters that he very rarely draws, he kind of gives me that look like,
Really? Like, why are you doing this to me?
well, he does like to research the characters that he draws, because he likes to, individualize the way he draws them. So
Sure.
I can understand from an artist standpoint, you know, at a show, drawing it for the first time, he wants it to look as good as possible. And even though we as fans, we love whatever they give us, as an artist, as a professional, they're looking at it as, oh, I could have done better if I had reference, or if I was drawing at home. And I've encountered that a lot with artists, you know.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Look at Comic Guard Boston. He's trying to steal your flame a little bit here. It can't be more obscure than the Two Gun Kid. Because that's the subject of a series of commissions he's been getting lately.
Ah, I see.
That's why he brings that up.
Okay. Since you've thrown down the gauntlet, I have a sketchbook of Gotcha Man.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do.
Oh
So
my gosh.
if you
Wow.
want to be obscure, Gotcha Man's funny because that was one of my favorite cartoons as a kid, Battle of the Planets, and I actually have a tattoo of one of the characters after Alex Ross's painting. And when I bring that sketchbook to conventions, I notice artists of like a certain age range, if they're in like their 30s to young 50s, their eyes light up. They want to draw it. They grew up with that cartoon.
Sure.
But then if I go to like older artists, 60 and older, I kind of get that deer in the headlight look. Like
Like what?
they have no idea
What are
what
you
the
talking
cartoon
about,
is,
Rich?
what the
Yeah,
characters are, and I've gotten
exactly.
that a few times. So that's a specific book I have to kind of gear towards like a certain age range of the artist, and I'll get a better commission of that.
Hmm. Carl, all the way in Hawaii, says, good thought, Rich. 2 years in a row, and I asked Frank Cho for women characters, Looker and Emerald Empress, and he never heard of both, and he did awesome jobs. So you lucked out,
That's
Carl.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, with a guy like Cho, I mean, that's his specialty. So I would imagine it doesn't matter how obscure the female character is, because the key for him is female, not the character name, right? It'll look good regardless of who the character is, you know?
Well, if you look at my gallery, I have a commission from Adam Hughes of Mantis. Okay. And this was before the Guardians of the Galaxy movies came out with, they revamped the character for that. This is when Mantis was in the Avengers back in the 70s. So me and Adam were the same age. And I figured, if I grew up with Mantis in the Avengers, he probably did too.
Yeah.
So when I asked him for the commission, I kind of got that blank stare, like, what am I going to do with this character type thing. And then I realized, like, oh yeah, even though we're the same age, I started reading comics when I was like 5, and some
Right.
people may not have read comics till they were like 10 or 11,
Like
years
me.
later.
I was
Yeah.
12. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, age is relative sometimes. But the funny story behind that piece was, it was back when Adam was taking commissions over eBay, and whoever the highest bidder was, you'd meet him at that next show, and you were guaranteed a sketch by him, whatever you
Okay.
paid through the auction. So I went to the Baltimore con. This is back in 2009, and he wasn't sure what he wanted to do with Mantis, and I was polite and I kept going to his table every once in a while, and he said, I'll take care of yours last. I want to get these other ones out of the way. And then it turned into meet me at the restaurant in the hotel afterwards. I'll do it for you then. So I hung around. He drew it in the restaurant for me. Came out great in my eyes. I was happy with it. I went home, drove back to New York that night. And then I got an email from Allison like 3 days later. And she was like, Adam wasn't happy with the sketch he did for you.
He's gonna redo it.
He wants to know if he can redraw it for you.
Yeah. I heard that. It's not the first time he did that. He did that. Yeah. Over and over. He's done it many times. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I think it looks fine. Allison thought it looked fine, but Adam wasn't happy with it. So he redrew it, and a little time later he sent me that one. So I said to him in an email, what do you want me to do with the first piece? Do you want me to send it back to you or what? He's like, personally, I want you to rip it up and throw it out.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
He said, I'm not happy with it. He says, I don't expect you to do that. He said, just don't post it. I'm not happy with it. So that was the story of Mantis.
Speaking of Mantis, okay, we're gonna get to Mantis, but we'll go in order. Let's take a look at the next piece of art. Why don't we? Okay, and that one will be, what should I put? Okay, okay, Mantis will be not the next one, but the one after. Right now, let's take a look at this, since you've spoken a lot about Neil. And check this out, everybody.
Galactus.
Wow.
Well, the thing about this piece is Neil actually let me ink the blacks on this.
Really?
So when I started working for him, he hired me as an assistant.
Cool.
And whatever he needed me to do, whether it was find reference for him or fill in the blacks. So this was a piece we kind of collaborated on. He let me ink in the shadows, ink in the Kirby crackle. So it held a special meaning to me that we were able to work on it together. And this was a piece I paid off through the payment plan.
Okay.
And I think I paid this off after Neil had passed. So
oh wow,
this one holds a very special memory for me.
I can imagine.
Andrew, what's going on, buddy?
Let me just quickly take this second because I am seeing. I mean, I know they're coming for you, not me, but if you guys end up enjoying the show and you think you might come back in the future, please hit the subscribe button. I would love to get to 400 sooner than later. And at the very least, hit the thumbs up right below the video. Oh, and for anybody who's interested in seeing Rich's art, not only, of course, what he draws himself, which we'll be getting to soon, and we'll be showing that soon, but his collection. Don't forget, as always, in all my episodes, right down here below in the description, you can get a direct link to his gallery. So it's all there.
And to answer Marcus's question, yeah, whenever Neil wanted you to color in blacks, he'd put an X in there. That's the old school way of doing it.
That's classic. That's classic. That's what most people do. Thank you, Comic Art Boston. Very kind of you, sir. So yes, make sure you subscribe, sir. Oh, and Carl, what are you saying? So, oh my God, such is the word of Galactus, Kirby Crackle. Yeah, it's fantastic and so cool, Rich, that it's a combination Neil and you piece. I think that's fantastic. It makes it special beyond what any other sort of commission, a regular commission, would be.
Yeah, when Neil would give me a piece to color in the blacks, at first it was like so intimidating.
For sure, of course.
This beautiful piece of art, and he what I loved about Neil was he was very down to earth, and he would put it in layman terms that you could understand.
Yeah.
And his exact words to me when he'd hand me a piece was, "Don't be afraid to fuck up."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he said that's what whiteout was created for. So
yeah. It's true. It's true. It's all about making mistakes and learning from the mistakes, right? So
he taught me so much in such a short period of time. And the thing with Neil was if you just kept your mouth shut and listened to what he had to say, he would school you. You know,
Sure.
he would teach you what you needed to learn. I think the ones that went the wrong way with him were the ones that always had to, like, interject their opinions, or fight with him over stuff. If you just listened and took him for the wisdom that he had,
Right.
he was more than willing to share that with you. And the 2 years I worked with him, uh, you know, were invaluable in my eyes. And I'm just glad I had that opportunity.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's good for you, man. You're it's a good, great story and a great experience, and it's definitely people. It's I'm envious of having that type of experience. So that's very special for you. So that's good. Good for you, man. Andrew says an old timer Marvel inker told me once that much of the Kirby Crackle was executed with Q-tips dipped in ink. Interesting. Maybe not for everyone.
I,
Yeah,
I've, I've seen some artists do it that way. Neil actually drew circles, and then you'd fill them in. I mean, neither way is wrong.
nah,
Whichever way works for you.
yeah.
The mistake I made early on was I was actually using a circle template for the
Oh
Kirby
no,
Crackle, and
really?
then I was like, this
Oh
doesn't look
no,
right.
it's too it's too precise. That they're all
Yeah,
perfect
yeah.
circles, right? It doesn't make sense.
In fact, we'll talk about it maybe later on. But some
Yeah.
of the uh, re recreations that I've inked myself, I was doing a couple of Perez pieces, and he loved to put Kirby Crackle in his pieces, and that's where I found out in a hurry, like, this was done freehand. This was not done
Yeah.
with a circle template. And
Yeah.
even some of his, like, backgrounds with all the machinery with Avengers Mansion and all that. I tried using like a straight edge, with a
Oh
ruler, and I
no.
was like, no, you find out in a hurry, like, what was done,
Yeah.
freehand, because it's not lining up, it's not
Yeah.
straight, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. That's it. But that's it. That's exactly it. You'll learn by, just try it, try it, try it. Don't be afraid. Of course, it's always that for artists, that's an easy bit of advice. It's easy to give the don't be afraid advice, but yeah, most artists are just intimidated. It's just that's just how it is. You don't want to screw up, but you got to screw up in order to learn, right? And then
Yeah.
once you realize that, okay, now you free yourself up to be more, spontaneous with what you're trying to do. So
I just wanted to interject one little story.
absolutely.
About a week before Neil passed away, his daughter sent me to his apartment. We had a box of books that needed to be signed, and I spent about 2 hours just sitting with Neil talking about art, and it was like we were, two of us were like two kids with, like, our eyes, like, you
Sure.
know glowing, just,
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
because Neil was at a stage where he wanted to get back into drawing after being sick, and he was trying new techniques and stuff like that. He was always experimenting, always growing, always trying new things. And
sure.
we had this conversation for like 2 hours, and the pearls of wisdom that came out of his mouth that day. I mean, I was like choked up, like in tears, like listening to him, because for me it was like a dream come true. Like a kid that always wanted to be a comic artist, and
Right.
always wanted some kind of foothold in the door to, be able to draw. And just listening to him, his experiences, his wisdom. And he said to me, don't, like, Neil was a big proponent of using light boxes or tracing. Not that he couldn't draw, but it sped up the process,
Sure.
especially when it came to like portraits or stuff like that. But a good artist also needs to know what lines to put in and what to leave out. Um, so when I first started working for him, he was like, use a light box, trace over photos. That's how
Right.
you learn. He's like, without doing that, you're going to keep making the same mistakes over and over again. But by looking at a photo where different eyes fall, how the noses are different, the mouths, all of that, you'll learn more by, using a light box or a projector or whatever than you will trying to freehand it. You'll just keep making the same mistakes. And one of the last things he said to me in that last conversation was, um, it's the next stage when you take reference or you take a photo and you add that little something to it, that magic, that makes it just pop.
Right.
And he actually, we were talking about Bob Peak a lot that day, because he was telling me, don't look at comic book art too much. Don't try to emulate what people do in comics. He's like, look at real life, look at photos,
Yeah.
look look at classic painters. Neil loved Norman Rockwell. He loved Drew Struzan, Leyendecker, all these classic artists who also have used light boxes or projectors, in their work. And he was like, always think outside the box, always, take it to the next level. Don't try to copy what a comic book artist's done, because then it'll be like second or third generation of a drawing. Look at
Yeah.
whenever you set up a drawing for him, first words out of his mouth was going to be, where did you get your reference?
Right.
Whether it was a building, a street scene, a
Right.
vehicle, whatever the like. If you look at a lot of Neil's books, for instance, the Batman Odyssey, his daughter has said that he used more reference for that book than any other projects he's ever drawn. And you
Hmm.
can see it in the cars, in the buildings, in the caves. It was all based on real life. That's what Neil drew from, real life. He did
Right.
he didn't create something out of his head.
Out of thin
Everything
air. Yeah.
Yeah, everything was based on science or technology or something like that.
Yeah.
So, there was lessons to be learned there. And, he actually gave me a book on Bob Peak that day, that I treasure. And, somehow, some way, I want to carry on, some part of what he invested in me.
Cool. That's awesome. Okay. Fabulous. Great experiences too. It's like, again, very envious that you had that time with Neil. So good on you, Rich. Okay. So let me see here. Ronald, I posted your comment. Rich, Ronald emailed me something he wants me to show you after the show later. So
Okay.
yeah, so I'll do that, Ronald. No worries.
I've also seen, since we've been talking, I've been getting a lot of notifications from comic art fans. So I guess
Okay.
people are clicking on my gallery as we're
Oh,
talking.
cool. That's awesome. That's what the easy link down below in the description is for, folks. So that's fantastic. What else do we have? It's more, yeah, it's CJ, yeah, more organic that way. Yeah, correct. Wow, yeah, Carl says, wow, great story. Exactly. I love it. That's why I wanted Rich to come on. I know he could tell some stories, so that's fabulous. That's amazing, Rich. Okay, fantastic. So let's go to the next piece of art, shall we? And that will be the mantis that you spoke of. Here we go.
The mantis.
Mantis.
Yeah, I had forgotten that I gave you a scan of this, so I'm sorry if I jumped the ship with the story. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's cool.
basically, like I said, Adam wasn't happy with the first version he did of this, which wasn't bad at all. This one is a lot nicer, and he was able to draw at home. But beautiful piece.
Yeah.
And again, I think this was a more obscure character to ask him for. I don't think he ever drew Mantis before this. Um, Actually, if you look at my gallery too, I don't think I gave you the scan of it. But one of my first sketches from Adam was a Captain America sketch.
Okay.
That was back in 1990 when I met him, and he said to me during the show, "This is the first time someone's asked me to draw Captain America at a convention." So I
Wow.
said, "Can you write that on the sketch?" And
Ah,
and he
cool.
looked at me like cross-eyed, like, "Are you kidding?" I said, "No, no, write that on the sketch. That's cool." And he did. He wrote first Captain America con sketch. So,
Wow. Very neat.
and again, that was a piece I had sold back in '98 when I was trying to finance my first novel,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just got that piece back like 2 years ago.
Nice.
Someone posted it online, and I remember
Wow.
I was taking the train to work, and it popped up in one of my alerts, and I was like, "Oh crap, I got to get this piece back." So I blasted the guy with an email right away, and I was like, I was the first owner of this. Adam drew this for me at a convention in New York back in 1990. I'd love to have it back, and then he shot me a price, and we did the deal like instantly.
Okay. Oh, that's always nice, man. I mean, how lucky you two of the sketches you've spoken about. you got rid of back in the late '90s and ultimately ended up back with you. That's awesome, man.
Well, of the four sketches that I had back then, I've gotten three of them back, and
Three. Wow.
I know where the fourth one is. So I maybe
Nice.
once I get some spare change, I'll get that one back. Too.
So there's hope, Rich. There's hope.
Yeah.
Clearly, hope springs eternal with you, at
Yes.
least. Yeah, that is awesome, man. All right, let us continue showing art, and because I did decide to bring all the pieces you sent me, so I figured, what the heck? Well, let's show them all.
Yeah, we got about 4 hours left.
Yeah, that's right, Stanley. You hear that?
Stanley's
All right.
taking a nap.
So the next one is Michael Golden.
The
Yeah,
Punisher.
Punisher. Look at that.
Yeah, this was actually drawn in ballpoint pen. This was a convention sketch he did for someone. I found this at the second New York Comic Con. A dealer had it in one of his bins, and the odd thing was I had zero cash on me to buy this piece, so I was scrambling. How can I buy this piece with no money? I happened to have some golden pages on me from a Mr. Miracle book, um, and I showed them to the dealer, and of course, he picked out the best of the pages. But this was a commission I had to have because I love this time period of Michael's work. Anything from like 79 to like 83.
Right.
I really love that time period.
Most people, most Golden fans, they say
Yeah,
the same thing. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, one thing people may not realize about Golden is he is big into when he draws a weapon to make it as realistic as possible.
Sure, I remember all those Punisher covers.
Yeah, he's literally taking apart guns to figure out how they work in order to be able to draw them. So people that have asked him for commissions of the Nam or stuff like or GI Joe at conventions, you'll notice Golden's put a lot of time and knowledge behind the guns that they're holding.
Right.
So this is no exception.
Right.
And the thing with this piece, it to me, especially around the boot area, it has kind of like a Frazetta inking style with the hatching on there.
Okay.
That
I see what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, you may not be able to see it small like that, but it's kind of reminiscent to me. Um,
What I wanted to kind of, I wanted to say something about this piece in particular. I don't know if anybody else is on, and you guys in the live chat crew, please speak up, and let me know. But this, for me, for those of you who are, Michael Golden fans or have been, especially the early days like this, I got to tell you, Rich. And yes, I may not be a commission collector, but I do look at other people's commissions, right? So vicariously through other people,
right,
I will look at them, right? I got to tell you, man, I've seen many Michael Golden commissions over the years, especially from, also from the old days in '82, whatever. I got to tell you though, this is the first and only one
hmm
I have ever seen where he employed a heavy-handed, super cross-hatching style to
right,
fill in all the blacks
yeah.
on the character. Like, I've never seen that before. It's
Th-
always been
This
solid filled in blacks for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of the early convention sketches. A lot of them are done in pencil. Some of them are done in ballpoint pen like this. He definitely put a lot of time into this. I don't know if he did this at home. That's a possibility.
Right.
Uh, I mean, the only way an artist is going to put this much work into a sketch is either working on it at home or it was a slow show. You
Yeah,
know,
that's right. Right. With that
if
quiet
if
show.
if they
Yeah.
if they don't have a huge sketch list, they may put more time into a particular drawing.
Right.
Because I mean, you know, a lot of artists have told me over the years at shows, they just don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
If they're bombarded with sketch requests, a lot of times they'll ask you if they can take it home, where they can
Yeah.
spend more time on it. it doesn't always work for me because I have sketchbooks with me, and I don't always like
Yeah.
to
You don't want
lend
to
those
leave them.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially now that they're filled with
Yeah.
drawings from 20 years.
That's right.
One of my sketchbooks I actually sent to Australia to have an artist drawing it,
Wow.
and until that book came back to me, I was having
Shitting your
sleepless
pants.
nights. Yeah,
I can imagine. Yeah, yeah, I would have been too. I would say to people, I wouldn't do that. I would never do that. Not with years and years worth of commissions already inside the book. I mean,
yeah.
and
I
then by
mean,
the way, I've heard stories. There
mhm,
are collectors. I don't know if they're watching tonight, but there are collectors out there who did do what you did, and okay, they had it pretty full of tons of drawings in
mhm,
there, and then let it go to oh, well, let me take it home, one of those situations. Let me
right.
take it home and I'll do it better and I'll send it back, and ultimately lost the sketchbook because the artist was an irresponsible idiot who just like, oh yeah, I don't know, yeah, yeah, I'll get it to you, well, don't worry, I'll find it, and just lost
Yeah,
the freaking
I,
sketchbook.
I mean, as the years have gone on, and I've had commissions for over 20 years now, I've learned which artists have good reputations. That you'll get it back in a good time frame. Um, which ones are a little sketchier that it's a crapshoot whether you'll get the book back or not. So I kind of avoid those situations. And also too, even though I like things in a single bound volume, I've gone more with like a loose page where they can either ship it to me or finish it at the show. I don't have to leave the book with them. So you always got to make a decision. A lot of artists don't like drawing in sketchbooks either.
Yes, I know.
It's kind of confining, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
with the binding or whatever.
yeah.
I've gotten a lot of books that I like to keep good care of them, and I've gotten the books back, with the bindings broken or ripped or whatever. They threw it in their portfolio or dropped it down the stairs or whatever they did to it. So yeah, I've shied away more from the sketchbook drawings over the years, um, but it's a case by case basis.
Yeah, absolutely. David, it's always threes. It's always in threes, my friend. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Not just two. Come on. You're Australian. You should know that. Oh, that's funny. Oh, by the way, Mikhail, um, might this be in reference to anything having to, and I'm trying to be very careful with my words here because I don't know, I haven't really seen anything online. I heard something from someone, second, third hand, whatever. But is this a reference to anything having to do with Golden in something that happened in New Orleans convention a couple of weeks ago or something like that? Let me know. Yeah, otherwise I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, I don't know. What straight face? Is this yes or no? I don't know what you're trying to tell me, but okay. Let me see. Okay, so let's go to the next one. And the next one is so cool. Yeah, the next one. Let us do
Looks like
Jonathan Byrne.
Comic Art Boston is leaving us.
Oh, is he? Oh, hold on. Oh, dear Rich and Ruben, my apologies, but we'll need to check out soon and we'll catch the rest of the show on Rio. And thanks, Rich, for all your stories and insights. Thank
Yeah,
you,
well,
Comic Art Boston, my friend. Thank you so much as
thanks for
always.
stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you making the effort. Thanks, sir. And I will see you soon and we'll talk soon. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
And on to the John Byrne Commission.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mikhail. Thank you. Thank you.
So
I'll hold on to Rich.
yeah,
Mikhail, I may, when it goes third hand story, fourth hand story, who knows? The details I heard, it's so hard to believe that it actually happened. I may have to email you what I heard, and you can just tell me if that was true or not. Okay, sorry about that, Rich. Go ahead, sir.
no problem. So when John Byrne was doing commissions, I was trying to figure out what was like the best thing to get from him. At the time, he was doing a lot of those montage pieces. I don't know if you're familiar with those, where someone would ask him for like a character like Spider-Man, and
Sure.
then behind the character would be different vignettes of their history. When
Oh,
Spider-Man,
yeah. A
yeah,
montage. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So he did a bunch of them for Doctor Octopus and Doctor Doom, Galactus, a whole bunch of characters. So originally I was going to get something like that with the Scarlet Witch, and then the more I thought about it, this idea I had been kicking around for a while. Originally, I wanted like a timeline of the Avengers, from like, because they've had so many different lineups in the group from the different years.
Yeah.
Um, so I wanted a piece that would start with like the formation of the group, and as different characters came in. So originally, this commission was going to be four separate covers, 11 by 17.
Right. What's you can tell that's what it's kind of designed like, right?
Yeah,
Four
so
separate.
so
Yeah.
I ordered the first two, and I told his rep Jim Warden I wanted the first one to be basically Avengers #1 with those five characters. The second one would be more like the Don Heck era of like Avengers #28, that lineup, and so on. Instead of drawing it on individual 11 by 17 boards,
Right.
it was easier for John to draw it on one 22 by 17 board.
Oh.
So this is actually two boards instead of four broken up. He drew it on two boards.
Oh,
Uh,
but you're saying two boards each 22 wide?
yeah, 22
Yeah,
by
yeah.
17.
Right, exactly. It's how you get the width of four covers then
Correct.
basically. Yeah.
So when
Okay.
they originally posted this, a lot of people were um, being kind of controversial and saying there was no Avengers lineup that had both Hank Pym Ant Man and Hank Pym Goliath. And I had to kind of jump in and say it's not supposed to be a single group. It's supposed to be more of a timeline,
Yeah, yeah.
of different eras of the Avengers. And John did a great job with this. Love this commission. I had wanted to get a few more of different groups. I had thought about doing an X-Men one and a Defenders one, and I don't think he's doing commissions at the moment. He's
No,
been
he's not. He's
he's
not.
been focusing on that X-Men Elsewhere story instead. Uh,
Actually, our friend Jason Ladwig in the chat right now, he mentioned to us a few weeks ago that he apparently has already stopped. He a month, maybe a couple of months ago, he already finished his last issue and he has put it to bed apparently.
okay.
Yeah. So don't know exactly what he's been doing since, you know.
So if I get one commission from Byrne, I'm happy with this one. The Avengers has always been my favorite superhero group, so
Yeah.
I love everything he did with this one.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's, I mean, wow. I mean, so many characters, so many lineups, and by the way, speaking of lineups, for the for the person who was like, oh well, Hank, whatever, Giant Man, Ant Man, whatever, is not the right team or time or what. You know what? Like how big of a nerd do you have to be to bitch about stuff like that? You know what I mean? It's like, who cares, man? It's just a cool piece by a great artist of all these great Avengers. Like that's all you need to know. Like who
Well,
cares?
that's the funniest thing when you post something online. It's like instead of people just taking it for what it is and enjoying it, there are some that have to interject some kind of opinion,
Yeah, yeah,
just to be heard,
yeah. I got you, man, for
for
sure.
whatever reason. And it's like I kind of laugh at how these conversations just spiral out of control.
Yeah,
Because what happens is even when I post stuff online, I find a lot of people take pictures from my gallery and they post it elsewhere without ever telling me.
yeah,
And then, I'll stumble across it one day and I'll find out there's this like whole flame war of people talking about it. And and it's funny because they all talk like they're authorities on why
right.
this was created. And, you know, I crack up with that too, even with people with stories with Neil, online, people are always posting things like it's fact and it's not. It's like
Yeah, for sure.
when you hear the real story, it's like it wasn't anything of the sort. But people will run with their opinions and try to
No,
make it sound
absolutely.
like fact. So it's even gotten to the point where I still post art online,
Yeah,
but I've taken a lot of photos at conventions over the years, and that I've kind of held off posting because those were more personal to me, and I didn't like people just taking them, without ever asking or whatever, and posting them wherever they pleased.
yeah.
So
I
after a
got.
while, I just stopped posting a lot of stuff.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, like CJ says, some people are just mean spirited, and that's how it is. What are you gonna do, right?
Well, like a lot of us say that, we grew up in the pre-internet days. It was like back in the day, if someone said the stuff they said online in
Yeah,
person, they would have got a punch in the mouth.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
you
exactly,
know,
exactly.
there's no repercussions online.
That's right. That's right. The distance makes everybody a lot braver, I guess.
Well, it's funny because like even with our show, a lot of people come on there and talk smack or whatever, and then
Really?
yeah, yeah, more on Instagram than on Facebook.
Huh.
I think it's a younger crowd on there,
Okay.
and they'll post like crazy things that I don't even bother reading out loud. It's just not worth
Right.
the time.
Yeah.
And some of these people, you run into them at shows, and they're nothing of the sort. You know, they're
Of course.
very quiet, very introverted. But online, everybody's got brass balls. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's for a lot of people. It's their one chance to be more than they truly are
yeah,
in reality, right? So, all right. Let us move on to the next one. Why don't we go with we got four more guys. So yeah, and for these last four, these are the ones I was able to make slides for since I have color versions.
yeah,
So
CJ, I agree with you. Fists would fly.
let me see. Oh yeah, let me put that up there. Fists would fly. There you go.
Yeah, what's the old expression? Everyone's a tough guy till they get a smack in the mouth.
Yeah, that's the. Yeah, well, actually, I think that all stemmed from Mike Tyson, who said everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Right. Yeah,
You know.
my version was from the mafia movies.
Okay. They work either way, right?
Yes.
um, Perfect. All right, so let us show a
Thanks, Nick. I
really,
appreciate the comment.
a really big shoe. Yeah. So this next one is Ed McGuinness. Here we go. Look at this, everyone.
Yeah, Ed was one of the artists that I collected early on in the early 2000s. He was drawing the Superman book at the time, so some of my early purchases were from that book. Um, and Mitch was repping him at the time, so
Oh yeah.
anytime new McGinnis art came up, I would jump on it. So I guess at the time, the Thundercats comic that came out from Wildstorm was a little under the radar. Um, so when he posted the cover to number one, I couldn't jump on it quick enough. I was a big
Yeah.
fan of that cartoon. So I actually picked up a few McGinnis Thundercat covers at the time and a couple of splash pages. This is one that I've held on to over the years. I've had quite a few people inquire about it, but it's not going anywhere.
Oh,
Uh,
really? Okay. I'm not surprised that you would have had inquiries. I mean, McGinnis is very popular, and there are a lot more Thundercats fans out in this hobby than even I would have expected there to be. So,
well, the thing I find now with both comic art and toys in general is there's a new generation that's come into the hobby. When I was originally collecting, a lot of the people around my age were collecting Perez, Byrne, Golden, Frank Miller, Simonson, all those guys. Um, some of the fans that were older than they were collecting Kirby and Ditko and Neil Adams. But now I've seen over the past 10 to 15 years, there's been quite an influx in the hobby of the image generation. So a lot of collectors of McFarlane, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld. So that goes hand in hand with the toys, where in the toy collecting, the 80s and 90s toys are super hot, for the last 5 or so years. Thundercats, Transformers, G.I. Joe, He Man. So, it's
yeah,
a generational thing. So that's where I'm seeing a lot of interest in people that inquire about this cover.
right.
Um, not so much a McGinnis fan, but they seem to be more of a Thundercats fan.
Oh,
So
okay. Interesting.
it's like Thundercats number one. That's a desirable cover. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I love McGinnis's work. I've met him quite a few times at shows. Great guy. Um, for me, meeting a lot of the artists at shows makes it more of a personal thing. Buying art from them, helping to support their job and help them pay their bills and stuff like that. And Ed's just a great guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very nice gentleman. And thank you, Marcus and Stanley, for the updates. 49ers took it by a touchdown. Okay.
Stanley, we got 1 more hour to go.
Stanley, I think it's three more to go. Hang in there. Okay, great. So let us, everybody, read the scrolling message on the ticker message at the bottom. Enjoying the show? Clicking the thumbs up icon would be appreciated. Yes, that would be cool. If you haven't done so already, that would be awesome. Thank you very much. And one more time, for those of you who do watch this show every now and then, please consider subscribing. Hit subscribe, please. Let's get to 400. I want to get to 400 soon. All right. So perfect. Let us go to the next one, Rich. We got 3 more to go, and this next one is very interesting. I want to see what you got to say about this one.
Tiger Man.
Yes.
So I would put this in the obscure character category.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I was collecting comics back in the 70s, this was a book that, I stumbled across at the newsstand. I didn't know a whole lot about Atlas Comics, but, this cover I loved. I never came across the first issue before this. When I lived in Brooklyn, the distribution in the candy stores was very limited. So finding consecutive issues of a comic was very difficult. But I came across this issue number 2, loved the cover, and this definitely hits a nostalgic chord with me.
Yeah.
1975, I was 8 years old, I guess. And for years, I looked for the cover to this. I didn't even know who the artist was
Right.
that had drawn it because it wasn't signed, and it was difficult finding information online about it. So when Comic Art Fans started, I had put a wanted gallery up of covers I was looking for, and this was one of them. So a couple of guys had left messages that it was, in fact, Frank Thorne that drew the cover. So that kind of gave me a starting point of where to look.
Right.
And Frank Thorne had gone through about at least 3 different art reps in the years I was looking for this cover.
Okay.
And as different ones helped him out, I reached out to them. At one point, Frank had said he had the cover, but he wasn't sure where it was in his house.
Right.
So it was kind of a dead end. And then through the magic of the internet, I got an email out of the blue a few years ago. Someone contacted me and said, "Are you still looking for this cover?" So I said, "Sure. Do you have any leads on it?" And he replied to me, "Leads." He said, "I own it." So
That's
I
funny.
said he was going to give it to one of the auction houses to sell. He said, but he would give me first crack at it if I was interested. We worked out a deal for it. Uh,
Awesome.
I believe I had to do a time payment on this one also,
Okay.
and I was blown away. Not just that I finally found the cover to this, but looking at the original art, how different it was from the published. So I had even reached out to Frank Thorne's last rep to confirm that this was the actual original cover art and not
Yeah.
a recreation because it was slightly different.
Yeah.
And he confirmed, yes, it was the original. That Atlas had changed things in production.
Oh
So they,
yeah.
so they,
You know what? You know what, Rich? Before we started the show, I was actually staring at
yeah,
this work,
uh,
and I was just making a mental note myself of all the different changes that I could find that were clearly done on a stat. So
right,
that's why you don't have the logos there, because they statted the art and then they made all the changes onto that stat, and that's where
right.
the ultimately the logos, stats went on to, so.
Yeah, I mean the central figure, they cut that out, enlarged it, and shifted it slightly. Um, for me, like a lot of people, I've seen like even with recent covers, a lot of people create like stats for the covers because the stats are done digitally now. the
Right.
logos or the word balloons or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I guess being an artist, I actually like the art without any of that stuff.
Right. Sure.
So I love looking at this cover with nothing obscured. I mean, you see that character on the right middle. You know,
Yeah.
he was obscured by a word balloon. The
Yeah.
top of the art was taken out.
Yeah.
So
In fact, Rich, not only was that Cyclops guy there on the middle right, not only was he, um, uh, it's not that he was covered up by the "he stalks the night" caption.
mhm,
If you look at it, he was removed, so they probably
right,
whited it out or whatever because
right.
you should still be able to see part of his shoulder underneath that caption, and you don't see any of him.
And even the characters behind him in that same panel, they were
Yeah.
enlarged and shifted down.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of it was cut and pieced and enlarged.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And did you notice how they even wanted to change the Zulu warrior on the left hand of Tiger Man's foot to make him more angry looking. They
oh
put a
yeah,
grin on his mouth. You
yeah,
see?
I didn't notice that.
Yeah. That's
Wow,
fun.
yeah, they changed the mouth completely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I noticed things like the cross hatching at the bottom was taken out,
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
things,
Yeah, that's
but
right. And they added those little, I don't know, like it looks like Tiger Man and the guy he's fighting there at the bottom looks like they both peed themselves or something. And you got you, on the published cover, you got two puddles of something there underneath them. So they added something there too.
yeah, I mean, this was a character that he didn't go very far. I think he had 3 issues that were published, in the mid '70s. Um, beyond that, I mean, like I said, it's pure nostalgia for me.
For
Uh,
sure.
I'm such a geek because I was into like Mego figures. I actually made a custom figure of this a couple of years
Oh yeah.
ago. A friend of mine is a sculptor. I had him sculpt the head and
That
you
is so
know,
funny.
yeah, stuff like that. So yeah,
Hey man.
it was really cool that someone reached out to me.
Yeah.
Anytime that happens online, if you put like a want ad up there, and especially I was looking for that cover for like 20 years to finally have that like materialize and
Right.
pop up.
That's
Like
amazing.
I said, it may mean nothing to anyone else, but to me, it was a childhood book, and
Yeah,
to
for sure,
finally
man.
have the original. I don't have a whole lot of art hanging in my house because we have like slope ceilings, so not a lot of wall space. But that is one that does hang, that I get to see every day.
Cool. Very nice. Tricky Trapster, what's up, bro? Good to see you. Thanks for dropping in, man. And it's nah, you did it the wrong way, CJ. It's not it's great. It's it's great. You gotta stretch the great, not the it's.
Tony the Tiger Man.
Tony the Tiger Man, yeah. Scared the piss out of him with his bestial fury. There you go, Rickster. That's why I need you here every week. Awesome. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, yeah. Don't correct it. I don't. Why does everybody always correct their typos? We know what you're. 99% of the time, we know what you're talking about. That's funny, man. Number one Marvel fan says that he really liked Atlas in the '70s. Parents got them really cheap somewhere, so I was reading odd books. Don't know what the fuck was going on. Hey, man, you get what you can get, right? Like whatever. As long as you enjoyed it at the time, that's all that really mattered, right?
What was really cool in the Atlas books? I don't know if you've ever flipped through them, but the ads that they had in there,
Uh-huh.
some of them
I
were
have. I
really,
haven't, and I haven't since I was a kid. So
yeah. As a kid, some of the ads were kind of creepy.
okay.
They were all in black and white. I mean, there were ads in there for like the Marvel figures and the Aurora models and stuff like that. But they also used to put ads in there for like 8 millimeter films, so you could buy like the Planet of the Apes movies through that.
Oh wow.
And I think there was an ad in there too for what was it, the freaks in the circus. They had
Oh,
like photos
circus
of them.
freaks. Oh, like yeah, yeah, old time circus freaks.
Yeah, like the werewolf boy
Pictures.
and the guy
Yeah,
that was
yeah, yeah.
like a worm.
Jojo, the dog faced boy. Yeah.
Yeah, and as a kid, those photos like freaked me out.
Right,
You know,
right. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not. I mean, especially if you're like 5, 6, 7, it's not the not the kind of stuff you really should be showing little kids. But I guess they figured, kids love monsters,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you know, so funny. All right, so we're almost to the end of showing Rich's art, and then we're going to segue over to show some of his art, which I'm looking forward to seeing, and he can talk to us about that. So before I show the next piece, let me just say what you're saying. No mage art? I was told there'd be some mage art tonight. I don't know who told you that. Who told you that, number one Marvel fan?
I
Certainly
do
wasn't me.
I
You
do
got
not
any
have
mage
any
art,
major
Rich?
I do not have any major art.
He doesn't have any major. What makes you think you? Why would you bring that up? I'm okay because I thought you were actually making an in joke because you knew that Rich may have some mage art, but he's got none. So I don't know what you're talking about. I think
No,
you just wanted to see mage art.
the only Kamiko art I have is elementals.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. The only stuff worth having. Ah, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Nothing
Uh,
else.
Alone in a Manger. No, I'm not sure what your reference is to, but I'm sure it's something kind of dirty or funny or I don't know. Uh, yeah. I know you're just messing. I know you're just messing. No room. No room for a crib because you're alone in a manger. Okay, got it. All right, guys. Let's take a look at the last couple of pieces. And the next one is Gene Colan, as Rich was speaking of earlier. Check this out. What a beauty, man. What a beauty.
All right, so Captain America number 601 was the last book that Gene had drawn for Marvel Comics before he passed away.
Yeah.
Um, I had picked up about 3 of these pages from him and his wife before they passed.
Wow.
The interesting story about this, well, first of all, these were published from Gene's pencils. They were not inked for the book. There were 2 versions of the book. One was colored that you see on the right there. They also published a black and white version that
Oh,
that came directly from the pencils.
cool.
The interesting story about this page, first of all, I had asked Tom Palmer at one of the shows I'd met him if he'd be interested in inking one of these pages, and this was the page he inked for me on a
Oh,
separate on a separate board. I would never
yeah.
have the pencils touched.
No, that's great. I'm glad you did that, man.
So the other interesting thing about this was when I first started going up to continuity. I would hang out there for a little while, help them with some of the shows, even before I was working for them. And I brought my portfolio up there one day. Neil had been talking during one of the shows about he loved Gene Colan's art. He always wanted to work with him, never got the opportunity. I think he inked one of his covers for the Spider book. That was about it.
Okay.
Um, so I bring the portfolio up there. I've got 3 of these pages in there. He's flipping through it. He's got his best poker face on. Didn't really say much. Flip through the pages. He does a live show that night, and he was gushing about the Gene Colan pages. He's like, I always wanted to work with Gene.
Yeah.
I love all the information that he puts in his pencils. If I ink them, I know what stuff to add and what stuff to leave out and all this.
Hmm.
So I went up to the studio a few days later. I said, I didn't realize, how much you like those pages. So at first he was like, would you let me ink one of them? I said, well, I don't want to touch the originals. I want to leave the pencils the way they are. I said, but if you'd like to scan them, do a high res scan, print out a blue line and ink it on that. So he was all jazzed to do it. So
Oh, cool.
we scanned the 3 pages I had. He had such a ball inking them. It was like a kid in a candy store. He had so much
Awesome.
fun, and I would have never guessed it. I would have never guessed that because his style was so different from Gene's, that he had such a love for Gene's illustrative style,
Hmm.
and he just had a ball inking those pages. And after he inked those 3, I started looking online to see who else had pages from the book because it had been broken up years before. So we found one guy that Neil was friends with. He had a bunch of pages. He brought them down to the studio. Neil scanned those in, and all told, I think Neil wound up inking about half the book. There
Wow.
was there was 40 pages in there.
Holy
Um,
crap.
I think before he passed, Neil inked about 30 of those pages.
Just for fun, for his own
And
amusement, because he wanted to do it.
yeah, yeah, purely for fun. And then
Wow.
he wound up selling the ink pages during his show. But he had a
Cool.
ball. He had
Wow.
so much fun inking those.
Do you
So
do you recall? I just out of curiosity, what they roughly sold for his light box, not light box, his blue lined inks for the colons paper.
yeah, they ranged between 2 and 3,000 a page.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was set by him,
Yes.
and people just claim them at those prices.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. The first 3 pages, like the first night he showed them, one collector scooped up all three,
Oh wow.
and then
Cool.
he did other pages later on. We had given Neil scans, even the ones we didn't have the original pages to. I scanned them out of the comic that was
Oh
printed in pencil.
yeah, right.
So we had set up blue lines for every single page, but he didn't get to every single page.
That
The way Neil would work also would he would do a little bit on this page, then a little bit on that page, because he would work through the night. He didn't get a whole lot of sleep.
right.
Um, it used to blow my mind. He would come into the office the next day with like a stack of like 15 pages he had worked on, different commissions, projects. And I was like, I really got to step up my game. This guy is cranking them out. And at that point he was like 79, 80 years old and working like a machine. I mean, he was definitely like the hardest working artist I had ever encountered.
Mhm.
So he really made people step up their game to work closer to his level, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. All right, great. Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful piece. So I was looking forward to showing that one and having you speak about it.
Yeah, I mean, seeing that in person, the pencils, because Gene shaded in like different tones of gray.
He
So
painted in pencil,
yeah,
literally. He
yeah. I
painted
mean,
in
no scan
pencil.
is going to do it justice. To
Yeah,
see those pages in person with all
yeah,
the different subtleties in it is just a sight to behold.
yeah, absolutely. And actually, I just wanted to mention, if anybody out there remembers, I always said my favorite work of Gene's, not not inked. So out of the stuff that you know of that was not inked, my favorite was Nathaniel Dusk.
Yeah, I thought you were going to
Um,
say that.
okay, and in particular, the second miniseries I thought was even better than the first one.
Okay.
And I just wanted to put it out there for those of you. I don't know if you noticed, or if I don't know if you watched the show, but so I really, really enjoy the Stargirl TV show.
Hmm.
And this past season, the final season of it, they had on a few episodes exterior shots of, like, the characters are outside, and on the street you're looking at a movie theater. It takes place in a very small town, and it's got a movie theater with the old marquee, and the I guess Jeff Johns must be, because he's the writer, producer, creator, or whatever of the show. I guess it must be because of him. But on the wall where they would put like the movie posters with like light bulbs around the movie
Hmm.
post, whatever. Yeah, they had they were advertising the next, I guess, upcoming movies for Nathaniel Dusk. It was
Easter egg. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Really, really fun, cool Easter egg. And so if
As
anybody,
they say, when you know, you know.
yeah, yeah. So for those of you who want to check it out, if you don't watch Stargirl, check it out. It's kind of a fun show, anyways.
I
And
think that was one of Gene's first books that were produced from his pencils. See, the hard thing was like the printing process. They were never able to hold the pencils, very
Mhm.
well for publishing, for printing.
Back in those
And
days, yeah, especially
yeah,
the
and
80s.
and as the years went on with computers and digital scanning, they were able to do justice to it, because I was blown away the first time I saw Gene's pencils, because it was so different from pages that were inked. You
Hmm.
know that so much had gotten lost, in his inked pages, that you see all the subtle shading that he put into all his pencil work.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to get a commission from him, at the first New York Comic Con, and it just blew me away how he shaded, with the
Hmm.
pencil, like you said, like a painter
Yeah.
with pencil. Um, Quick Gene Colan story. I had become friendly with him and his wife during the first New York Comic Con, and I stayed in contact with them. And they were always inviting me and my then wife to visit them. They were living on Long Island at the time, so they had arranged like a year later or so to go to their apartment. They were gonna have pizza. We'd hang out, have a few drinks,
Yeah.
So it was a great time. I mean, for them to like open up their house to fans, and I just sat there and like a kid in awe, listening to Gene's stories about Stan Lee and working for Marvel, and the ups and downs of the business. It was just, they were such giving people.
Yeah. Lovely people. Lovely couple, huh?
Lovely. Yeah, two of the best people I ever met in the hobby.
Yeah. Cool. All right, guys. Why don't we take a look at the last piece of art that Rich is going to show from his collection tonight? And then we'll segue over to his calf gallery so he can show us all a little bit about what he's been doing with art himself. All right, so let us put this one, and that is the one that you guys all have been seeing earlier over his, or I believe you saw it earlier over his shoulder. This is the Joe Jusko, Prince Namor the Submariner, after John Buscema, of course. Why don't you tell us about this one there, Rich?
So when Joe first started doing these corner box pieces, he had done a Conan one, which was the corner box to the Conan magazine,
Yeah,
Savage Sword of Conan, I believe it was called.
yeah.
Um, so when he did that, I thought that was beautiful. He really knocked it out of the park. So I reached out to Joe like immediately upon seeing that, sent him an email, and I said, did you ever consider doing any other Marvel corner boxes? If so, I'd be interested. He said, funny you should mention that. I'm going to do a series of them. So he had already figured out which ones he wanted to do. He had a great affinity for the ones from the 1960s books he had grown up with. So I worked out a deal with him that I was going to buy the first five, and he
Wow.
did. So that wound up being Spider-Man, Captain America, Submariner, Vision, and Doctor Strange. So each one beautiful, beautiful piece. Um, the
Absolutely.
Submariner one he really knocked out of the park. I mean, not just the figure, which is beautiful, but I love the background. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
the
Yeah, yeah.
the sunlight coming through the ocean,
Yeah,
the coral reef that he's standing on.
yeah.
Um, the
And
the, the
the blues are so beautiful. The shades of blues, right?
and again,
Great values.
you lose so much with the scans. I mean, the
Oh,
scan
yeah,
is
sure.
beautiful, but to see the piece in person, the colors are so much more vibrant.
Yeah.
Um, the funny story behind the Submariner one was Joe sent me a scan of the finished piece, and he's like, "How do you like it?" And I said, "Joe, I hate to tell you this, but I think you forgot the wings on his ankles." And he's like, "Oh shit," because he had already put like a coating over the painting.
Oh, he had already varnished it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God.
So,
Wow.
so he was like, "Oh fuck." So so he went back in and added the wings on the ankles after that. But
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
beautiful piece.
Oh yeah, no, it's absolutely stunning, beautiful. Like what? And I'll say, I mean, you can tell that Joe has always been a lifelong lover of John Buscema's art, and so am I. So when you're a huge fan of Buscema's art, and somebody draws in their sort of style, it's just beautiful. He's always been so fabulous at keeping the spirit of Buscema's figure work
Hmm.
and the way he poses them. Yeah, it just and then adds the realistic, painting to it. Yeah, he's just every time he does Buscema inspired stuff. Yeah, Joe's work, it just blows me away. Just
Well,
beautiful.
you can tell it's really a labor of love for him.
Yeah,
I've gotten a few sketches from him at shows, and I always try to ask him for like a Buscema based character from like the Avengers or something like that, because I know he's going to add, that little something extra, that goes with, an affinity for the character or the artist. But yeah, what I love about the corner boxes is Joe's taking those classic poses, from the 60s or 70s corner boxes,
Yeah.
and like you said, he's adding that realistic painted style to it, which really brings them to life. So yeah, when you compare the painting to the one on the far right from the original comic, it's like night and day, but it's still got that nostalgic pose to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This is a stunner. Would you say that this one is your favorite of the ones you have?
Yeah, it's funny because Submariner as a character wasn't a favorite of mine. I'm sorry, Nick.
I can say the same thing though, Nick. So you can blame me too. I even to this day, I'm still not some big fan of Namor. But he's just a naked guy in swimming
I,
trunks.
I told Joe that, but that aside, I think this came out the best of the ones I bought from him. Again,
Yeah.
because I think his love for Buscema, and he just added so much more to it. I wasn't expecting him to add like the water, in the top, the sunlight coming through. I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting him to add the coral reef in there. So you could tell a lot of love and admiration went into this one.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And sort of going with what we were saying about the not the character not being either of our favorites. The thing is about artwork is there you go. Look at that beauty. The beautiful thing about art is, at least illustration and comic book illustration, is that with the right artist, a certain pieces, they can make you love the character more than you ever did before, just because the art itself is so gorgeous. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, I was never, I never could care either way about, care less about a Namor the Submariner or whatever. I mean, other than, okay, Byrne took over, did a Namor series, so I did. I read that because of Byrne, not because I was a Namor fan.
Mhm.
But when you see a
Yeah,
piece like,
I was in the same boat.
yeah, that's it,
Uh,
right? And then you see a piece like Joe does, and you're spending thousands of dollars on it for a character you don't even really care about, but it's just because it's so beautiful. Like, who cares, right? It's suddenly the character doesn't matter all of a sudden, if you know what I mean.
and good night to Vivian.
Ah, my wife, where is she? Did she? Ah, there you go. Bye, honey. Have a good night.
And Nick, if it means anything to you, a lot of the Perez pieces that you have, I'm very jealous of. So uh,
Oh, you're trying to suck up to him because we both lambasted the Submariner.
of a lot of art that I've gotten rid of over the years, usually to pay bills or whatever, the pieces I regret the most are either the golden pieces or the Perez pieces that I've let go. Those meant the most to me.
Okay, but you still have some good George art, right?
I've got some George art. Some I've recently purchased,
Okay.
but I used to have some really killer pieces. I look at art that I've let go over the past 20 years, and I probably could have retired by now.
I know what you mean. Believe me.
Just on the golden pages alone, I had pages from Doctor Strange 55, Star Wars 38, Avengers Annual 10, Marvel Fanfare, Micronauts. The list goes on and on.
No, I get you. I get you. Um, Number one Marvel fan is asking, but remember, the number one Marvel fan, remember that it's the color guide to it. Okay, so the line art, it's not Golden's original line art. The
Right.
colors,
It's a
it's the
copy of
colors,
the line work that
right?
that was hand colored in Dr. Martin Dies.
Yeah, exactly.
If you look at the scan in my comic art fans gallery, you'll notice that the purples started to fade. The Dr. Martin dies. So on the Hulk's pants and Machine Man, the purples have started to change a little color over the years.
Okay, and his question though, he wants to know: is that a forever piece, or would you ever sell it?
Yeah, I mean, with all the golden art I've let go over the years, this is a piece I'd really prefer to hold on to. Again, because it's one of my favorite pieces by Golden. And as I told Ruben earlier, if the original line art ever popped up for sale, it would be out of my price range. I mean, I don't have a
Most
hundred
people's
grand
price range.
laying around or more. So I figured the closest I was ever going to get to this piece would be the color guide. And I probably, at the time, broke a record for the highest price for a color guide at auction. But I'm kind of glad I did, because it's definitely a piece that was worth going after.
Yeah, very cool. All right. All right, Richie, why don't we segue now, as I said earlier, into showing everybody a little bit, and you can talk to us
Mhm.
a little bit about what you've been doing with artwork yourself. All right. So
Sure.
I'll do the share screen feature. We'll go to your gallery here, and then you can kind of, once I'm in there, you guide me and tell me if you want me to point to certain things or, click on certain things.
I'm
Yeah.
just going to answer Stanley's question really
Oh,
quick.
sure. Let me pop it up there. Let me pop it up. There we go.
Yeah. Before I started working for Neil, I was buying from their live auctions. Um, it's funny because um, the family actually said to me, when you started working for us, you stopped buying art so much. And part of the deal was, whenever I would buy art, Neil would kind of read me the riot act, because I was spending, hundreds of thousands on a piece of art that he drew, and he'd like shake his head at me like a parent and be like, "You're crazy. You're out of your mind. Why?" Because Neil was not a collector, and he couldn't quite
except
understand.
except except for of money. He would like to collect money from all those crazies spending that kind of money on artwork that he had. So,
Well, I mean,
you
I
know,
mean, the deal is, Neil, unlike other artists, was running a business. It
of
was
course.
it wasn't just, him going to a show. He had
No.
continuity.
Oh no, yeah.
He had employees.
Of course.
Having an office in Midtown Manhattan is not cheap. So
No, he
there were
he was
bills every
always the
month.
consummate businessman.
Yeah.
Let's put that out there. Like, yeah, that's clear.
And also too, Neil was very big on taking care of his family. That was first and foremost in his
Absolutely.
mind. So
Absolutely.
it's funny because, I've heard people grumble at shows because he was charging for a signature or charging for a photo, or his prices were higher than another artist. But the person that I knew working for him behind closed doors was extremely generous. I seen him over the few years working there, help people out that were in need. We had one regular customer of ours that would come to the shows, that had bought a lot of art from Neil, come down with medical problems. He asked Neil if he could sell him back the art, which he did, no
Wow.
problem. On top of that, Neil actually gave him money out of his own pocket towards his medical bills without the guy even asking. So,
Nice. Wow.
people can complain about, charging for signatures all they want, but
Yeah.
when you know the whole story, then you can kind of
Yeah.
gauge, what's going on.
Yeah. Absolutely. But at the same time, Rich, as well as I do, as well as all the guys in the live chat, in this hobby, certainly in most hobbies, there's always going to be people who complain about anything, like anything, everything you can imagine, right? It's that's just it's the way of the world, and especially in
Well,
this hobby, when it comes to artists, come on,
especially in with the internet, there's so much misinformation out there.
right?
People say things like it's a fact when it's someone's opinion.
Sure.
So I've kind of learned to step back from all these fire wars online, and you
Oh, I
know
totally, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Easy Go Lucky. As always, my friend, I appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out. Enjoy your dinner.
thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much, and have a good night. We'll see you hopefully next week, man. Take it easy. All right, guys, let us share screen time. And let me see here, and we'll take a dive deep into Rich Cirillo's gallery. Okay, so what I'm going to do is share screen. and we are going to share. Not the whole screen. Let us share. Let's see, comic art gallery. Yeah, let's do this. Are you seeing it, Rich?
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just popped up.
Okay, cool. And let me open that a bit more. And okay, you're seeing me scroll now, up and
Yep.
down. Okay, perfect.
So
All right.
for anyone that's interested, I'm currently doing head sketches. Most characters, whatever you're interested in, whether it's comic book, cartoon. Also at the bottom there, you'll see some recreations I did. Um, and
Interesting variety of styles and media, Rich.
yeah, I mean, when Neil was teaching me the proper way to ink, it kind of got me jazzed to start doing some recreations of pieces that I've loved for a lot of years.
Okay.
Again, these are pieces that I wouldn't be able to afford if the
Right.
original ever became available, which they probably won't. But that's a prime piece right there, that Dave Cockrum piece. That's probably my favorite Cockrum X-Men piece he ever did, which was the cover to a Foom magazine.
Yes, I
Um,
remember.
so I to try to ink different styles. I love the way Cockrum inked back in the day, so I did a recreation of that. This is Garcia Lopez, the back cover to Batman versus the Hulk. So it's funny, as you do recreations, you get to go line by line what an artist was, the thought process, the artistic process behind it. So for anyone that's interested, I'm available to do recreations. Here's some head sketches that I did as well. That's the Gremlin from Bugs Bunny, one of my favorite characters.
And
So
Rich, can I ask,
yes.
for the benefit of since you're hopefully looking to maybe find some fans who want to get some commissions made,
Mhm.
for stuff like this,
Yeah.
and in this style, do you do these straight out of your head, or would this be like copied from an already existing image of like you know what I mean? Like in other words, do you grab an image of this cartoon character and you kind of look at it and freehand it, or is this completely out of your from memory?
This is more from reference, not
Okay,
not from memory. I prefer the characters to look more on point,
okay,
as opposed to a more stylized. I can do a stylized version if you want that, but
right,
I personally prefer like a classic image of a character.
right.
So I'll follow reference more closely. But yeah, if you want something more stylized, I can do that as well.
Yeah, and you're doing the colors as well, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
these
yeah.
are colors by me, marker, color pencil. So
Cool.
the color head sketches I usually charge like 150 for those.
Okay, what size would they be?
Those are 8.5 by 11.
Okay, all
And
right,
those are on heavy stock paper. And then
okay,
the commissions, it would depend on what you want. So
right.
you can either purchase something that's in my gallery, or if you have something in mind, shoot me an email and we can discuss it.
Classic.
Yeah.
I used to love the monster cereals. Oh my god, I used to love these. Uh, that's so cute. Yeah.
Yeah, where a lot of these head sketches came from was Neil was doing a lot of head sketches over the last couple of years, and I commissioned him to do a couple of pieces. But before he passed, there were some characters that I always wish he had gotten around to, so I wound up doing them myself, whether it was
Cool.
Count Chocula or Gossamer or whoever. This was another favorite piece of mine. George Perez, early on, he drew the Guardians of the Galaxy. A friend of mine, Ted, owns the original to this.
Ah, yes.
Um, the piece that he has was penciled by George, and it was not inked. And my friend said he had actually tried to get some veteran inkers to ink it, and they were
Yeah.
kind of hesitant because of the amount of work in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one I love too. That's the Treasury cover to
Yeah.
Marvel Team Up by Gil Kane and John Romita Sr.
Nice work, Rich.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I mean, as you emulate different artists, you get to see how they handle characters differently or line weight or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
This
exactly.
was a Kirby piece from Tales of Suspense.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, a lot of these I just did for fun and to kind of learn as I go along.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
his
The
favorite
more you do, the more
one.
you learn, right? So,
Yeah,
and you've even learned how to digitally color.
yeah. Digital colors I've been doing for about 20 years now.
Oh, wow.
This was one of my favorite Michael Golden pieces. The original was not colored, so I always wondered what it would look like colored.
Yeah,
And it was funny when I was coloring the Atlanteans at the bottom of the piece.
yeah.
Originally, I just had them in gray tones because I didn't want them to compete with like the Avengers colors. And I showed it to Neil like 2 years ago, and I said, how can I improve on this? I was always looking to grow and learn. And within seconds, he's like, "Why don't you go with a gold color with the Atlanteans?" And I was like, son of a bitch, I've been wrestling with this for months, trying to figure out what color to go with, and you solved the problem in like seconds. And it was just like his wisdom and knowledge. Just he blew me away. Just how he could problem solve on a piece.
Right. Well, I mean, again, he had the benefit of how many decades of experience, right? I mean,
Oh, sure.
he went pro. Remember, he went pro. I think as a 19. I think he was 19 when he first got a job with Archie. 18 or 19, something like that. When he
Yeah,
first started
he
doing
he
Archie.
he sold some work to Archie. He used to do joke pages for them. Then he was working for Johnstone and Cushion,
Yeah,
uh,
that's right.
the agency
Famous
for a
ad
couple of years.
agency. Yeah.
Yeah, he started working straight out of high school. I mean, Neil was raised by his mom. It was him, his mom, and his sister, and he had to help pay the bills, and he went right to work. His mom pretty much told him, if you're gonna make a living as an artist, you got to make this work, and he was very driven to make it work.
Gotcha. Jason, thank you so much as always, my friend. Talk to you soon.
Good night, Jason.
Yeah, no, I totally, yeah, totally, yeah, totally get it. Look, he was the first comic book artist. Oh, actually, Neil Adams yeah, Neil Adams was the first guy whose work blew my mind. As soon as I stepped in as a 12-year-old into the comic scene, and I discovered his work. Yeah, and then I learned all about him and his background, and having gotten into the business so early and doing advertising, and it made sense to me why his work looked the way it does. He brought in sort of advertising and magazine illustration to comics,
Right.
and
He
yeah,
he
that's
he
why.
he brought he brought something to comics that wasn't there prior. That realism, that photorealism.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it, buddy. Aloha.
and not just from an illustration standpoint, but from a business standpoint, he tried to implement a lot of things that were going on in the ad industry, and also too when he was doing the syndicated strip. There was a lot of things the way those businesses ran that weren't being followed in comics. And he tried to implement a lot of those things along the way, whether it was introducing more colors to the printing that comics could do, or whether it was better rates for the artists or the return of art. There was a lot of battles along the way that he fought, for creators.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody. I would think all by now everybody knows about the battle for the Siegel and Schuster, right? That's probably the most famous one. And but yeah, for helping people get their art back, and I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So, yeah, legendary status. Obviously, everybody knows about it, but in more ways than one. People tend to think about it in terms of artistry, but really, he did so much more than just the art he produced. He was so much more than the art he produced for comic books.
Oh yeah, yeah. From a business standpoint, absolutely. He was one of the first people to promote doing creator-owned series. He had done Ms. Mystic for Pacific Comics,
Yeah,
and he had brought along Sergio Aragones for Gru to Pacific, and also he was instrumental in getting Jack Kirby to do work for Pacific for Captain Victory
Right on.
and some other strips. In fact, when he mentioned it to Jack, Neil told me that Jack was like, "No, really, they're going to let us retain creator rights?" He was in disbelief because that was unheard of back then. But times were changing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And again, everybody, anybody in the audience, especially for those of you guys and gals watching on Rewind, please do. If you are commission collectors, you're always looking, I know, for new ways to get new sources to get new commissions from. Please consider Rich now that you've seen his stuff, but also use the link down below in the description if you haven't done so already, to go to Rich's calf gallery, and you can take your time, much more than obviously we can spend on it right here, right now. But at least that gives you a pretty good overall overview of all the different things that different styles and ways of working that Rich can do commissions in. And so
Just,
consider him reaching out
just,
to him.
just to give people a little background.
Yeah.
Even though I'm working for Continuity the past couple of years, I spent about 30 years in the apparel industry designing T-shirts for licensed characters. So I designed T-shirts for Marvel, DC, Looney Tunes, GI Joe, Thundercats, all these different licenses. So that's my background, and I'm kind of taking that from the apparel industry into more of comic book art now. So just to give you a little bit of a background. Yeah, I was looking at Stanley's question. I prefer physically analog art. Digital's okay. In the apparel industry, I worked digitally for the past 20 years. Um, there are some what's the word, advantages to working digitally, but I prefer the tactile, I should say, form of paper, ink, paint, the feel of it. Can I do digital work? Yes. Do I prefer physical hand drawn work? Yes. That's my preference. Just to put this out there also too, I'm going to be working on my own creator-owned book pretty soon. It's
Oh,
actually it's a project that is like 30 years in the making.
wow.
That the time's come to like get it out there as far as written and drawn by me. It's a project very close to my heart because in addition to dealing with superheroes and science fiction and all that, it deals with very relevant issues, things that I personally went through, and it deals with issues of uh, teen depression, teen suicide, a lot of troubles that are going on in our culture nowadays. There's an epidemic of this stuff going on, and I wanted to put a product out there that not only that you can put in a comic book store, but I wanted to get this book into the schools and the libraries. And basically, on the back of the book would have like a hotline for kids that are in that position, that feel like they're all alone and don't have anywhere to turn. That you're not alone, and that's the basic germ of the story. That it's a character that doesn't want to continue. He's gone through a rough time with his mom dying and then living in an abusive household, and he's given a choice to accept these powers, and he finds out what his purpose was in life, why he was born, why he was created. And I just want to put a positive message out there, for people struggling with these issues, because I've struggled with it myself through the years, battling depression and all these things
Sorry
growing.
to hear that, man. I did not. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, for whatever reason, I grew up in a rough household growing up. I weathered the storm, thank God, with a lot of friends and family behind me. But for me, it's like any rough time that you go through in life. I want to know that it was for a reason.
Hmm.
So down the road, 20 years later, 30 years later, if you can help somebody that's in that same situation and let them know that they're not the only ones that went through that. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of people I've found through the years that are into comic books and different escapisms. It's to get away from bad childhoods or whatever. It seems to be a common denominator with a lot of collectors.
Hmm.
And when I did a lot of soul searching on myself over the years, I found out that that was my escape. Drawing and writing my own books as a kid. That helped me escape. The things that were going on in my school or my home life or whatever. So, like I said, if you can take all those negatives you go through in life and turn it into a positive to help somebody else down the road, and I want to take some of my talents and abilities, as an artist or a writer, and put that into a product that maybe can help somebody. So
Yeah,
that's my
that's fa-
goal with that.
that's fantastic, Rich. Whenever it gets done, let me know. I'd be happy to do whatever I can to sort of spread the word to at least our little audience, and then, as you
Yeah.
know, with comics, it's you spread it to a few people, and it's word of mouth, and they get their friends to hopefully maybe pick it up as well, kind of thing, So
Well, I've found that in the hobby, as I've met different collectors over the years, whether friends through the internet or people I've met at shows, you start to learn a little bit about people's backgrounds, and not everybody had a perfect Brady Bunch life.
right,
A lot of people came from really tough backgrounds, and maybe comics did give them hope. Reading about a hero, that's I think that's why Spider-Man appealed to a lot of kids because he did have real life problems. His uncle died, and then he had to, take care of his aunt, and he was an orphan. He didn't know his parents, and he had to pay the rent, and he was losing his job or his girlfriend or whatever. And a lot more people can relate to a lot of the Marvel characters than some of the DC characters that seemed, perfect, that didn't have those same kind of problems. So I think that was step one, with Stan Lee interjecting that into the comic books, real life problems. I
yeah,
just want to take it like a step further with relevant problems. I mean, some of the classic stories that resonate through us as comic readers. I think of like the drug stories.
yes,
Neil and Denny O'Neil doing the Green Lantern, Green Arrow story with Speedy. Stan Lee doing the Spider-Man drug story. Even years later, Perez and Marv Wolfman doing the Runaways story.
mm,
These were very relevant stories that it wasn't just comic book characters; it was real life issues, and it's a medium that you can use to help people with. Not just it's a cool costume or a cool power, but
of course,
hey, I can relate to this. Hey, this gives me hope. You know, uh, a lot of people have been inspired working with Neil at the shows. You'd be amazed how many people came up to him about the creation of John Stewart. You know how Neil helped create a character that wasn't a gangbanger. That he was an educated African American that became a superhero, and that appealed to a lot of professional people.
yeah,
And they literally came to Neil over the years and thanked him for portraying such a realistic character. You know,
mm, yeah.
so I think it's a great medium to address some of the issues of the day and put a positive spin on it and help somebody out along the way.
Yeah, well said, man. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's very poignant, and I love what you're doing. I love the fact that you're doing it. So, thank you, by the way, for deciding that you would bring it up. Rich didn't tell me anything about this before. This is the first time I'm hearing it, so I'm glad you took the opportunity to bring it up here on camera in front of everybody. And yeah,
No,
it's
I,
important.
I bring it up because it has been something that's been gnawing at me for years to get this out there through my own what's the word how I feel incapable at times of telling the story because it's so personal. And also, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So if I feel like the art's not going to be up to standard or the story, I'd rather not do it. I want it to be like a
Yeah.
certain level, but there comes a point where it's like, okay, I have to get this out there. It's just,
Mhm.
something gnawing inside of me that, there's a reason why I went through what I did. There's a reason why this has to get out. And a lot of times you don't find out about the people you help down the road. It could
Right.
be, it could be after you pass away that someone
Sure.
says, this had an impact on my life, or this helped give me hope or change or whatever. You just sow those seeds, and whatever happens happens. um I just wanted to look at Michael Rock's question for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was just going to say that we're probably going to have to wrap it up because it's getting a
Sure.
little bit long, but I'd like to get at least have you answer this question for Michael.
So the one thing I mentioned before, that Neil preached all the time: don't be afraid to use a light box or trace something. It will help you learn, especially dealing with photographs and the human anatomy. That's a quicker way to learn than drawing it on your own. Good night, Andrew. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Andrew.
Um, the other thing he said to me was, don't be afraid to fuck up. You know, just draw it. That's what whiteout is for. Um, the other thing he helped me with, excuse me one sec.
Yeah, no worries. Dry spot. I
Hmm.
got it a couple of weeks ago while I was on the show. I was like, oh my god.
The other thing he helped me with regards to inking is that every ink line is different as far as thickness, thinness. He was saying his major complaint with a lot of the modern inkers is when they ink something, it's all the same ink line, the same width.
Mm. Yeah, but that's been a common thing with a lot of up and coming artists is the not enough variety in the line widths, right?
Well, he was saying you ink
Line
you
widths.
you ink material differently than you ink rock,
Yes,
differently than you ink steel or metal.
right.
Um,
You gotta recreate the illusion
right.
of texture, right? And you gotta make it believe that this is steel, that's rock, or that's leather, or a jean jacket's got to look and like you could touch it and it'd be jeans denim, not a slicker material or whatever. Yeah, it's
And the other thing too is Neil really had a grasp of lighting. He had a grasp of lighting with his ink line and also in his coloring. So what I mean by that is, if he was drawing a Batman head, he would show you how on I'm sorry, on one side of the head, the line would be thicker where the shadow was, and where the light was hitting Batman's head, the line would be thinner. So that was really eye opening. Excuse me.
no worries, man. Drink as much as you need to and clear your throat.
It's more of like a sinus thing with me.
uh,
I start getting like a nasal drip. Um, so that was eye opening to me and really turned the corner for me. And that's when I started jumping into all the recreations. When he showed me that one little thing, and the light bulb went off in my head, that when he's hitting the light from a certain angle, if you put a thicker line on one side, usually like the bottom of the figure, and then a thinner line at the top where the light's hitting it, it gives it a more realistic three-dimensional look. It's a little thing, but it was extremely eye-opening to me. So once I became aware of that, because when I first showed Neil my inking work, his exact word to me was, "You have a deadline." I said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "That's what they call animation art, where the line thickness is all the same weight. Whatever side of the character, it's all the same thickness." He says you need to vary thick to thin and all of that, to get the contours, get the shadow. And once he showed me that, I saw a huge progression in my inking from that point on. Everything he showed me, he was starting me at ground level and building me up with more and more difficult things to tackle. Um, I was hoping down the line, if he was drawing more of the continuity books, I would have got a chance to maybe ink backgrounds or fill in blacks or whatever, take it to the next step. But I took it from where it was and what I learned, and try to take it in some direction from here.
All right, cool. Well, again, guys, thank you, Rich. I can't thank you enough. Certainly tonight you did. I'm thankful because not only did you tell a lot of great stories, which is what I was hoping for, and what a lot of people like to listen to, but it, at the same time, simultaneously makes me talk a lot less, which a lot of people love as well. So for that reason alone, I thank you again.
I'm sorry if
Yeah.
I talked your ear off.
No. It's, believe me, no. It's fun. Like I said, my episodes typically go around this long. It's been 2 hours 45. I probably average like 2:30, 2:35. So yeah, but I mean, plenty have gone this long. So yeah, no, there's people are used to it, but yeah, I've noticed that people keep dropping off. So
I just want to interject one last story.
yeah, of course.
I was remembering the first time we met. I don't know if you recall or not. It had to be the early 2000s.
It would have been.
And it was a small Manhattan show.
Right.
And afterwards, me, you, and the other Ruben went out to an Italian restaurant.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
Okay.
Was that our first time we met? Was that?
I believe so.
Okay. Wow.
I had met the other Ruben prior to that,
Yeah.
but I remember him introducing you and saying, "This is Ruben from Canada."
Right.
So we went out to an Italian restaurant, and the one thing I recall from that was I ordered some pasta dish, and I asked the waitress for cheese for the dish, and I don't know if it was like a northern Italian restaurant or whatever, but
Okay.
she gave me like such a hard time, like I was like desecrating the dish by asking for cheese, and she didn't want to give me any cheese for the dish, and I was like, this is my meal. I'm Italian. I'm going to ask for cheese. And you guys were kind of like staying off to the side, like I don't know, Rich, you kind of pissed her off.
But remind me though, that was because you were butchering the way it was supposed to be pronounced. Was that the issue?
No, she just didn't want to put cheese on this.
She didn't want because she thought that this particular dish, it's sacrilege to put cheese on it, kind of thing, right? Yeah. I remember. Yeah. I remember. You're offending her, Rich.
I was like, you don't know me. I put cheese on everything.
On everything, right? Oh, good times, man. Good times. Yeah. Oh my God, I can't believe it's been like, probably over 2 decades since we first met.
About 20 years ago.
Oh my God! Thank you, CJ. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Rick, I agree. No cheese equals no tip.
I hope you enjoyed it, CJ, and take care of those ribs again, like always. And hopefully, you'll see you next week if there's a show next week. So stay tuned, everybody. About that, I will. I guess you'll get again. Subscribe if you're not subscribed, and hit the notification bell. This way, you'll know if there's a show next week or not. And thank you, as always, Nick. Please, everybody, remember to tune in to Nick's show this coming Friday, like every other Friday. It is at the EXP, YouTube.com/the EXP, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. And what else is there to remind everybody? Yeah, no, I guess that's it. I guess everybody's saying thank you. I don't know what you're talking about. Steak sauce, no cheese equals no tip. Good night, Nick. Thanks again. And thanks for hanging in. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks everyone for stopping by. Ruben, thank you for this opportunity. Always a pleasure, my friend.
My pleasure. Believe me, it was all mine. Stick around actually for can you stick around for a minute backstage?
For you, 2 minutes.
Sounds good. I'll put you in there now, and I'll be there in a couple minutes.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thanks again.
Thanks, Rich. All right. Thank you, Michael Rock. And really appreciate it. First time I've seen your name here. So if you think you might want to come back on Sundays, you're always welcome. I would love to have you. Like I love to have everybody else in the chat. It's a really fun time. I really see us all as friends, and it's a way to hang out for all of us, not just the two guys or whoever's in the studio, right? you guys who show up and can only speak with, by typing. You're as much as important as whatever content I decide to put on the screen here. So yeah, really can't thank you all enough. Thank you so much. Thanks for hanging in this long. Maki Pupu, as always, thank you so much, sir. And the Rickster, thank you so much. Always appreciate you. CJ, as always, yes, let's go and see each other on Friday at in Nick's show. And yeah, Stanley, Marcus Stanley Way. And Nick says, Rich, if you want, you can come on the EXP and sell some art. Nice. There you go. Okay, I guess he'll reach out if he wants to do that. And Michael, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. And you don't obviously have to. I can't force you, but if you would consider hitting the subscribe and notification bell or notify me buttons, that would go a little way towards helping. So thank you. But as long as you come back and watch in the future, I really appreciate it. And you'll have to let me know how you heard of the channel, how you discovered the channel, and why, how come you're here for the first time. Would love to know. So thanks again, everybody. Really appreciate you, especially those who keep tuning in every week, and those of you who stick around no matter how long the episodes go. Really can't do it without you guys. So thank you so much. Nick, I appreciate the update. That's 2 more since I started the show, anyways. Yeah, so that's okay. Slowly but surely, or was 2 more. So I appreciate it. Whoever did that, whoever subscribed, thank you so much. Appreciate it. 22 more, guys, and we get to 400. It's a tough slog, but we'll get there. So thank you again, everyone. And because I have no final decision as to whether there's a show next week, I clearly have no thumbnail graphic to show you guys and to say goodbye with like I usually do. But in that stead, I will say goodbye to you guys now, and we'll leave you with the final happy birthday wishes to Kavi once more, in case he tunes in later or something like that. All right, so thanks, guys, and I'll either see you next Sunday, or if not, the week after. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you again. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.